Good evening and welcome to the Charlton Board of Selectmen's meeting for February 4th, 2014. I'll ask that we begin with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our agenda for this evening will consist of review of the meetings from the Selectmen's regular meeting of January 7th, which will be followed by community relations, announcements, and open forum. After that will be followed by appointments and resignations. We have a resignation as for a per diem dispatcher. We have a resignation as an alternate from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have an appointment to the Police Auxiliary and an appointment of a per diem dispatcher. We have three scheduled appointments. We have a scheduled appointment at 6:40 with the Planning Board regarding the open position appointment, meeting at 6:45 with the Charlton Housing Authority, and 7 p.m. a meeting with Kurt Meskis to discuss electronic burning permits and building permits. That takes us to new business, where we have several items. First is the annual town meeting coming up on May 19th, and the annual town election on May 3rd. We will be approving the calendar of events and opening the warrants. A second item of new business is Cub Scout Pack 165, recognition of scouts. Next is the Charlton Little League Parade, followed by the Charlton Orchards Farmer Winery. And next we have a special license request by the Charlton Council 11379 of the Knights of Columbus. After that, we'll be discussing our snow and ice removal account. Next item under new business is the Dudley Charlton Regional School District request for election. And our last item under new business is a roundtable discussion on Charlton growth. That will be followed by old business, committee reports, the Board of Selectmen policy review, the student select persons report, the town administrator's report, and then the other business unknown at the time of posting. I would entertain the board's wishes with regards to the minutes of Tuesday, January 7th.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
I move that we accept the minutes of January 7th.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. We do have a couple of announcements. The Charlton Police Department is once again taking part in the National Drug Take-Back Initiative with the DEA to help residents and non-residents properly dispose of their expired, unused, or unwanted prescription drugs. This event is taking place on Saturday, April 26, 2014, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Charlton Police Department, 85 Masonic Home Road. And anyone has any questions or wants more information on that, you can call the police department anytime. Chief, thank you. The town clerk has stated that nomination papers are now available for the 2014 annual town election to be held on May 3rd, 2014. 48 certified signatures are required. The following seats are open: Selectman seat number 4, Selectman seat number 5, town clerk, town moderator, assessor, a cemetery commissioner, two water and sewer commissioners, 1 planning board member, 1 planning board member due to a vacancy, 1 recreation commissioner, 1 board of health member, 1 tree warden, 2 library trustees, 1 member to the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee for a 3-year seat, and 1 member to the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee for a 1-year seat, and 1 member to the Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School Committee for a 3-year seat. The last day to obtain nomination papers is Thursday, March 13th until 3:30 p.m. The last day to submit nomination papers is Friday, March 14th until noon. The last day to object or withdraw is Friday, March 28th until noon. And the last day to register to vote, the most important part of this, is Monday, April 14th from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. We have a letter here that I would like to read if we could. And this letter is dated January 19th of this year to Chief Charles Cloutier and members of the Charlton Fire Department. Dear Chief Cloutier and firefighters, please accept our heartfelt gratitude for your efforts in responding to the fire at 58 J. Hammond Road, Charlton, on Wednesday, January 8th. We were impressed by your response and dedication as you fought this stubborn fire in such extreme temperatures. Our sadness over losing the family home is softened by the images we have of your selflessness. One moment that will stay with us is when a firefighter gave a family member a stack of photos and needlework that he had taken off the wall inside the home. At that point, we knew that whether the house could be saved or not, we were in good, caring hands. This difficult experience has served to give each of us a deeper appreciation of firefighters and a first-hand knowledge of a kind and compassionate community. Best wishes to all of you as you continue your great acts of service. Yours truly, the Miller family, Julie Mamie, Carol Hill, Tom Miller, and Sandy Sullivan.
Nice.
So, we are very fortunate in this town to have such professional public safety departments, and it's amazing. Well, I shouldn't say it's amazing, but we do get quite a few letters when events happen from both the police and fire on the quality of the service. So we are indebted to both departments, and particularly in this case to our fire department, and we want to make sure that this gets over to Chief Cloutier. Do we have anyone here for open forum? Ms. Walker, announcements?
I wanted to give an update on the MMA, and I didn't know if this is the appropriate time, or would you rather wait till later in the agenda?
We're almost on a regular appointment, so can we wait till other business?
Sure.
That wasn't on
Yep.
there? Okay,
Can we wait to maybe the committee reports?
Sure, whatever you want.
okay, thank you. We do have a 6:40, do we have anyone here for open forum, Chief? I'm sorry.
With the weather tomorrow, I just want. Mr. Chairman, just reminder, we're supposed to have some fair amount of snow, bad weather. So to facilitate plowing, we're going to exceed the depth that people are required not to park on the roadways. So to avoid any unnecessary ticketing or towing, inhibiting plowing operations, sanding operations, please, everybody, keep their cars off the road. If you get stuck and you need to abandon if you get stuck, please call us and we'll help make sure that you get towed or whatever. So just don't leave your vehicle abandoned if you get stuck somewhere. And if we all cooperate, obviously the highway will have much better ability to keep the roads open. And if I may, through the town administrator, had notified that town hall would be closed tomorrow, so anybody trying to venture out to do town hall business, there won't be anybody here, so just to save them from coming out.
Thank you, Chief. And just as a reminder, as the Chief said, Town Hall will be closed tomorrow due to the weather. Do you have any other announcements?
I'm not sure if
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
on open forum or if we're on the agenda for Charlton Housing,
Charlton Housing is on the agenda.
for both sides.
Well, the topic is on discussion. We'll entertain discussion from both sides when that comes up. Sir, you wanted to add something for announcements or open forum?
May I approach, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I'll be brief. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, my name is Mike Valenzola. About 3 weeks ago, I announced my candidacy for the state senate in the seat that Senator Steve Brewer will be retiring from. I'm a former two-term selectman in the town of Wales, and as a part of the campaign and in the beginning stages of the campaign, I'm trying to hit all 28 towns' boards of selectmen to introduce myself, recognize your service to the community, acknowledge the work and effort that you put forward on behalf of the town, and to let you know that over the 10 months I'll be out there aggressively campaigning, but that my view of a senator is that they're a partner with the towns that they represent. And so my hope is that throughout the campaign, but also if elected, we'll be able to partner together to work on behalf of the people of Charlton.
Well, we never hesitated to call on Senator Brewer, and he was a good friend to the town. So we wish you well, and if you're successful, we'll be talking quite a bit. So
Pleasure.
We wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Do you have anyone else here for open forum? Then we will move on. We do have a 6:40. Yeah, we're going to hold on the resignations and appointments and get to our 6:40, so we can stay on time there. That's the downfall of the electronics. You have to move around on them. We do have a 6:40 appointment with the. Is anyone here from the planning board? Our 640 appointment is with the planning board regarding an open position. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. There has been a vacancy on the planning board due to Patricia Gill moving out of state. The opening has been running on cable and the town's website as the board's policy states. One request for appointment has been received from Alicia Disick, and I apologize if I don't get your name correctly.
She's used to it.
Who currently holds the planning board alternate seat. The planning board is recommending the appointment, her appointment to fill the open position. The vote for appointment must be done jointly and by roll call by both boards, and the term would expire at the time of the town election, the annual election in May. Once the appointment is made, we will advertise the alternate position opening on the cable and the town's website.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a quorum?
Mr. Chairman, we've opened our meeting.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments from the board?
This was the only person who was considered?
Yeah, I would want to, Mr. McGrath, do you want to address that?
Yes, it is the only person that put her name in. She's also served as an alternate for probably about a year and a half, 2 years. And she's also Dr. Gunther's granddaughter, which is very, very.
We know how much weight that carries in
It's
this
very
town.
good. It's very good for us. So
Just one question I have, if I may. I was doing a little looking earlier, and if this appointment goes through, that would put you as a full-time member of the planning board, or full member of the planning board, not full-time. The member of the Central Mass Regional Planning, as well as a member of our Economic Development Commission. Do you plan to keep all three of those roles?
Absolutely, unless it proves to be a conflict of interest.
through the chair, after we had our little discussion this afternoon about that, there is a seat on the EDC that is reserved for the planning board member. So it's up to the planning board, I guess, to, we'll ask if she wants to do it again, and if not, we'll elect another member to the EDC.
So, just so I can understand, so out of all the members that are on the EDC, all are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, except there's one that's held for a planning board member?
Correct. And that's the way it was set up.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Then I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Singer?
I move that we appoint her to the full seat on the planning board.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a roll call vote. These procedural things. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Zafirovich?
Aye.
Mr. Salou?
Aye.
Mr. Singer?
Aye.
Mr. McGrath, would you poll your board, please?
Patty?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome
And
aboard.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
We do have a 6:45 appointment with the Charlton Housing Authority. Ms. Craver?
Oh, you're right, this is, okay, so we
See?
keep going this way. For those of you at home that will see me playing with this, may I just make
Oh,
this
please,
announcement?
please, if you would.
Please.
Yep.
We did have a grant, not a grant, we were granted 10 iPads for the Selectmen and Finance Committee to use. It's a part of the grant to stop cutting down so many trees. If you see the amount of paperwork that we copy every meeting. So, I've not used one of these, so you'll see me going back and forth a little bit. I'm trying one out, and we will be getting them set up for the rest of the board.
Would you want to mention who these came from? Or would we rather not do that?
No,
at this
they've
point?
actually asked to kind of be a little anonymous, but they
That's just-
came in with 10 of these,
How can you be a little?
I know, huh?
a little anonymous.
So we wish to thank the donor of the iPads, and they will get put to good use. And as you can see, I usually use my own iPad, and I didn't tonight, so this is the stack of paper. So if we can eliminate this times 6 or 7 every 2 weeks,
And
it'll
we,
make a difference.
and with 10, we'll be able to also use them for selectmen, and then we'll take them back. You don't get to keep them. And then we'll be able to use them for the finance committee, and then we'll take them back, and we'll reload them.
Who says we don't get to keep them?
I was just being really clear. I'm frisking you
Okay,
on the way
we
out.
do have members of the Charlton Housing Authority here.
Planning board, okay.
There you go.
I'm here. Okay, thank you. At the board's last meeting, you had a resident from the Charlton Housing,
from Charlton Housing, operated by the Charlton Housing Authority, complaining that she and her association have been trying to get information from the Charlton Housing Authority without success. She felt that the Housing Authority should be more open as to its process. To that end, she also asked the Board of Selectmen to direct the cable coordinator to tape their meetings and place them on the Charlton Cable channel. She also complained that there were mold studies that were not being released to residents who might be affected. You directed me to request the mold studies and to invite the Housing Authority and Board of Health to join you at your next meeting. Your last meeting was canceled due to weather, and we have brought it back for this meeting. I requested the studies from the Housing Authority, and they did not provide any. I have attached the only one that the Board of Health had, which is dated February 10th, 2012, nearly 2 years ago. Since that meeting, the Board of Selectmen has received a request from Kristen Christigian to also tape and air boards and committees, in particular naming the Planning Board and the Finance Committee. I have included her email here. As the Housing Authority is attending, another issue you may wish to discuss with them would be requesting them to enter into talks for a payment in lieu of taxes, also known as a pilot program, to pay their fair share for the water debt. They did not receive a betterment for the water project, as state law does not authorize a town to directly tax or assess betterments to housing authorities. The appropriate vehicle would be the pilot program. The Housing Authority already has a pilot agreement with the town for taxes. I would suggest that the same formula be used to calculate the water infrastructure contribution. Clearly, the Housing Authority receives a savings and a benefit. I understand that they are on a tight budget, as with all our residents who must pay for the debt incurred bringing water to Charlton. I explained this to the director and suggested that the Board of Selectmen and Housing Authority also discuss this tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Walker?
Mr. Chairman, could we discuss the pilot pilot program first? I think it's less controversial. I was at a meeting with the housing when Jean explained why it is so enormously difficult for them to participate. My sympathies at this point are with the Housing Authority on that issue. But I think I'd like to discuss that first if we could.
Does anyone have any objection to that?
Yes,
You do?
yes.
Okay, I'll hear that.
The pilot issue is a whole separate issue, and you are invited to the Housing Authority's meeting on February 11th at 3:15 to talk with the entire board about that.
Okay,
Okay,
that's fine.
then we will go on to the other issues raised in this letter.
So would you like to set a date to actually have that happen? Because that was my point, not to have the
February
conversation
11th
here.
at 3:15.
Do we have members of this board who could attend a 3:15 meeting
On February 11th?
on February 11th?
Or between 3 and, let's say, 4, anytime. You let me know what time in between there, and we'll fit you in.
Is there anyone who?
Or do you want to appoint a couple of members to sit with them and bring you back something? That might
I
be-
think that might be more beneficial, as I don't think we'd get a quorum. I don't think we'd get that many members there. Do we have anyone who could be willing to go on this?
Well, I'll be happy to. What's the date again?
The 11th. It's a Tuesday.
Since I'm already on their side. The 11th. At what time?
3:15?
Yep, that's good.
Do you have anyone else who'd wish to attend that?
I think maybe Robin should come.
I would also suggest that we get the assessor to come.
Yeah, good
So would that
idea.
be a fair contingent, Ms. Walker, yourself and the assessor? Okay. And Ms. Vincent, I'll turn it over to you if you want to respond to what's in the letter regarding the mold study and,
I haven't seen any letter.
okay.
Oh, yes, I did. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. It was afterwards. There was a mold study, and you do have a copy of it that was dated, like you said, in February 2012. That is the last mold study we have. That is the first and only. There is nothing other.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
just regarding the mold study, my concern is that the report that I was sent shows that mold was found moderate to high levels but I was never given any report showing that any action was taken, that there was any remediation, and any follow-up report showing that it was cleared.
Which report is that, the February 2000?
This report is dated February 14th, 2012, and the attached documents say, I gotta go through it and find it. Lots of notes, there were lots of recommendations. Windows in all rooms have black mold due to excessive moisture. Actually, there are a lot of recommendations for repair work. Do you have it right there? Here we go, the last page, it says, the following issue must be addressed by Charlton Housing Authority forthwith to protect the health of the occupants of unit, I think it's just 20. It says the following issues discussed with property manager Jean Vincent. Severe mold throughout unit, all windows, walls, must be cleaned by certified company to provide safety to occupants and persons cleaning mold. This is to be done forthwith. Roof is leaking into walls, creating excessive moisture. Windows are not weathertight. Front storage room with air conditioners has severe mold and water damage. Repair bathroom faucets. Tenant is having medical issues due to mold. It's constantly going back to mold and saying that it needs to be addressed, and they kept using the word forthwith. So my problem is that I have no other report showing that any actions were ever taken to remediate the mold.
I will say, Mr. Singer, that I didn't ask for any further. I asked for any reports that they had, but I didn't ask if they had anything in mediation, so.
No, I do appreciate that, but I would assume that if someone's gonna provide a report that shows that there was moderate to high levels of mold, that they would also show that, yes, there was, and we've taken action that's been remediated, and we have that report here. So unfortunately, all I have to go on is the report showing high levels of mold, and in order to remediate, and I have no reports or letters or documents showing that any action was taken to remediate it, and that any follow-up testing was done to show that it was cleared. So this is all I have to go on.
Okay. I do have one question though before we start, and I apologize, I probably should have asked it first. If a landlord in town has a tenant come to the Board of Selectmen and make statements like that, does the Board of Selectmen call in that landlord?
It's referred to Board of Health.
Yeah, that'd be my guess, except unless I'm mistaken, most of those are not town-owned, isn't this?
This is not town-owned either.
The housing authority is not?
No.
It actually goes, if someone came in and made a complaint to the Board of Selectmen's office, we would refer them to the Board of Health.
Okay. But it's not town-owned property,
All right, well, I appreciate that, thank you.
okay?
As a
I will
selectman,
pass along the bills if you wanna own it.
and that's fine, and I'll tell you then, as just a resident of the town who pays taxes, I wanna know now what was taken to remediate, and I wanna see the reports, because I pay my taxes, and I'm sure as a concerned citizen now, I wanna know that people in my town aren't living in an apartment complex or an apartment building, or whether it's town or privately owned, that shows reports showing high levels of mold that has to be fixed, and I'm just hoping that there's something out here, and if we have no authority, I hope the Board of Health would
The Board
wanna
of
see.
Health wrote that up, and the Board of Health took possession of that unit. And the Board of Health gave me the possession of the unit back when everything was to their satisfaction. And at that time that that report was made, no air quality studies were done, no mold samplings were taken. I don't know how they can call it mold without samples.
Well, whoever did the report in my Environmental Health Inc. is calling it mold, so perhaps we have
But
to
that's
have the
without
Board of Health.
any tests.
Well, hold
No
on a
tests
second.
were done at that time.
According to this report, didn't they do some tests?
No, your Board of Health does not do the tests.
No, Environmental Health Inc.
It says they delivered a bulk sample of suspect mold from the,
Right, to
unit.
EM Lab in Phoenix, Arizona for analysis, and they did provide an analysis from the report. So it was provided to a lab, and analysis was done. So then perhaps we need to ask the Board of Health to come in here and find out, was it ever remediated? Do we have any
Yes, it was
documentation?
remediated.
Well, it would've been nice to present that.
I really don't have anything but bills to say that it was remediated.
Well, that's something at least.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe it probably was remediated, but I certainly think we should check on it. My greater concern at this point is that, according to a meeting I went to with the Tenants Association, there's considerable other apartments that they believe have mold in them, and some of the tenants did say that they had people in there checking it, and they thought they were from your office. So, and that's been within the last 6 months, and that's my, my concern right now.
I didn't hear a question on that, I'm sorry.
So, maybe we should hear from the Tenants Association and find out if,
You know, if you have a question regarding the housing authority, you asked me here, and
Okay.
I'm still
So
a
is there,
little
to your
confused
knowledge
as
then?
to why we are
All
here.
right, to your knowledge, is there any, other than this report from 2 years ago, have there been any reports of any concern by any tenants of any mold issues in the housing?
Some questions were raised and air quality tests were done. I do not have the results of them.
So when were those tests done?
I think
And-
it was later than that, but it could be.
Okay, so the tests were done sometime last fall then?
Yes.
And no report has been sent back to
No.
you? And did you pay for the tests?
No.
So they were done for free?
No.
Somebody paid. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss here.
Yeah, well, apparently somebody did pay. We don't know who, but apparently
So,
somebody did pay.
well, where are the results? Did the Tenants Association have any results?
I don't believe so. They didn't order any tests.
Could we hear from the Tenants Association? I'm just concerned that there's mold still in the apartment complex, and it needs to be remediated if there is, or I need to be reassured that there isn't.
I'm being sort of, there's some things that happen, and the tenant's privacy and confidentiality is very strict, is very high. We regard it high. We take it very seriously. If something is done to a unit, I cannot tell you what the results are without them giving consent, but it even goes further than that, okay? I can't come up here and say, well, that unit, because of this reason or that reason or that reason, has mold, and
Sure.
it's not the housing authority's problem. I can't do that.
Right. Well,
I'm being very cautious because their privacy and confidentiality is of the utmost importance to us, and we will not violate that.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Walker, then Mrs. Singer.
Thank you. I completely commend your expressed intent to protect the tenant's privacy, and I think that's enormously important. I agree with you. However, I don't really need to know who the tenants are or what apartments they are. I just need to know if there's any mold in the whole place. That's all.
I quite honestly couldn't answer that for you. I mean, you're asking me questions that, and again, I'm gonna go back to, if this was a private landlord up here, would you be doing this? Just because we're a housing authority, I have probably far stricter rules and regulations to follow as a housing authority than an individual private landlord. And as far as tax dollars, I'm not sure where that comment came from. We don't get any money from the town. None of your tax dollars at a town level comes to us. And right now, we do not receive subsidies from the state, so I'm not getting any subsidies from your state tax dollars.
Mrs. Singer?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have a concern which I'll address after that. My first is, my comments regarding being a taxpayer of the town were that as a citizen of the town, regardless of whether I'm a selectman or not, I'm concerned about this town. I'm concerned about the people who live in my town and people who do business in my town, whether it's a housing authority or a private building. As a selectman, if it was a private building, a private property with a tenant-landlord situation, and the landlord was breaking laws, I would want to know. Sure, I would. My concern here, though, Mr. Chairman, is from what I've heard so far and what has apparently been verified, is that it's a housing, this is really Board of Health. And one thing that I think people, and as bad as I may feel for tenants who live there, if there is an issue, is that this board has no authority over the Board of Health. This board cannot tell them what to do or direct them. They're their own elected body, as is the Housing Authority. So the only thing I can suggest personally would be to request a hearing with the Board of Health and meet with them next, or pursue it with the Housing Authority, because also as an elected board, you are elected, I believe, we can't direct them to take certain actions, including televising their meetings. I can ask them to televise their meetings, but as an elected board, I wouldn't tell them to.
I believe it's an open forum, so that it doesn't matter.
We're gonna wait, we'll recognize people who wanna speak. I'm gonna ask you to wait a minute.
If you wanna get back to that issue,
We have no problem with televising our meetings.
Well, I wanna finish up on the mold thing first, if
Okay.
I could, just for a minute. What I would like to do, as this was brought to the Board of Selectmen from a resident, I feel it's our responsibility to get back to the resident. What I would like to do with the board's agreement is to ask Ms. Craver to contact the Board of Health and ask them if they have any information regarding this situation that they can forward to us, that we can look at and forward over to the residents.
I did go to them and ask them what they had. At this point, they only have the mold report. If there's any new testing, they have not been aware of it.
So they don't have any records of
That I'm aware
remediation?
of. You have someone that wants to.
Yeah, I'm gonna, we have, ma'am, if you come up and introduce yourself, and if we can make one of the chairs available for, are you from the Tenants Association? Okay, if we can make one chair available for the Tenants Association.
Actually, can we make two? Because I'd like Kevin to also.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll give the Tenants Association a chance to speak, and then go from there.
Separate, or you want to speak together, or do you want to speak separate?
I'd prefer you come up together, if you would.
Debbie wants to.
May I ask for clarification also? I didn't hear the answer to the question of why the results from the mold testing in the fall have not been returned.
it's gonna be addressed
I
right
haven't
now.
heard that either.
We haven't been given a reason as to why they haven't.
I don't know.
So which is why we're gonna ask the Board of Health for their input on this.
Well,
'Cause
they
that's
don't,
actually
they
more of
don't
a
know
Board of Health
either.
issue.
Actually, they
Well,
don't know either.
I'll let them tell us that.
Is that, Kathy?
Somebody needs
Yeah.
February 4th.
Kathy?
I've got two of them.
Joe,
Oh.
you have two?
Need one?
I'm confused. Is there a packet?
Sorry, does the housing not want to be up here with us, because I don't mind sharing?
Is
If
there,
you would,
did you just have,
We can share.
okay.
Okay, well, I would just like to start off.
if you would move the microphone over and introduce yourself,
Sorry.
please.
I thought it was really loud. I would like to start off by
If you would
saying
introduce yourself, please.
that my name is Kathy Fisher Fournier. I'm the president of the Meadowview Tenants Association. This is my second time coming before the Board of Selectmen. My reason for coming before you is we, the Meadowview Tenants Association, have asked that the Charlton Housing Board meetings be televised for greater transparency. At the last meeting, we also discussed the ongoing mold issue. We asked that Jean Vincent, the executive director of the Charlton Housing, be forthcoming with the toxicology report that the Meadowview Tenants Association requested for her to have done. This mold issue has been ongoing for 12 years or more, and the situation has never been rectified or even discussed with the board members. Jean's comments to the tenants that complain about the mold is, just use bleach and water to clean it. Finally, a phone call was made by myself to the executive director. It was requested in writing also that she hire a contractor to come and check out the mold situation. This was all requested by the Meadowview Tenants Association. So Jean did hire someone. In September 2013, a person came to each one of our homes. Now, if you look on the paperwork, there are statements made by each and every member of the housing who they had inspectors come into their home with Will, who is the, help me out, the maintenance man. And so there was someone in our house with the maintenance man taking mold and, you know, putting it in and scraping the mold and taking
this mold. So it absolutely was done. So this is what bothers me so much, because, actually, I will read what I have, because if I go off track, I'm sorry. A person came to each one of our homes at family housing, side with Will, the maintenance man, and the professional that was hired took swabs of our mold. We, the Meadowview Tenants Association, have requested the results. This toxicology test on several occasions. Now that we have made the town aware, the selectmen wrote to Gene Vincent and the board of directors a letter asking for this toxicology report. What the selectmen have received, which I showed you, was a report that was done in 2012. It just amazed me that she didn't know what that was, because she's the one that sent it to you. But that was the one that was sent, not the new one that was done, but the 2012. Okay. What bothered me the most is it was done on my apartment.
1 second, then, Mr. Zefirovich.
I usually remind myself to be courteous, but I feel as though we're getting to the area where we might be attacking people, and I think we should.
Yeah,
remain
we're
a
gonna
little
ask
more-
that.
Okay, I'm very sorry.
What's the
The mold was on my apartment, and you saw how bad it was, and my daughter's been very ill, my mother and myself, so I'm sorry if it sounded that way. I apologize very much. Sorry. I do not want to get off track. I want to make sure that this goes in the right direction, so I apologize. So the report was not good at all. The mold was scraped, bleached, and repainted. This is considered a Band-Aid approach. I would please ask that all of you on the panel, if you have any time, to please Google Dateline Breathless. It will give you quite an insight about low-income housing and mold issues and how they are such a huge problem plaguing the United States. I'm not saying that this is a problem caused by Jean in any way. I'm just saying that it's a problem that needs to be addressed, and maybe she's not even aware of how bad it is and the way to go about it. So that's what we're trying to bring forward. Since starting the Tenants Association, I have been harassed in every way by the executive director, and I've been unfairly targeted and received many eviction notices. They line my wall. This is a major problem with the housing development starting tenants associations. However, the DHCD, the Mass Union of Housing, along with Governor Deval Patrick's office and the Attorney General's office, are all well aware of the situation here at the Charlton Housing Association. And that the number one rule in starting a tenants organization for public or government housing is that the executive director of any housing development is not allowed to harass the person or persons organizing a tenants association. Somewhere, somehow, Jean, the Charlton Housing Association, did not receive that memo. We, the tenants, hired our own legal representation through an environmental lawyer and have recently had our own mold study done, which we have the results from. I am giving you a copy of mine. If the other tenants wish to give you their copy, that is up to them. But to get back to the main subject of the whole reason this started was to have the Charlton Housing Association board meetings televised for the transparency. Their last meeting would have certainly raised a red flag in the insinuations that we, the tenants, have been trying to explain that the board is unaware of anything the executive director does, that she is not accountable to anyone. She runs the show and not the board. The board members refused to attend your meeting because they were unaware of any mold issue. Transparency, transparency, transparency. You, the selectmen, sent a letter to the executive director and the board members to come to the next town meeting to be objective and to give their side. You received a letter from the executive director explaining that they could not attend this meeting because of otherwise former obligations. Really? 6 members on the board and not one person could attend? Unfortunately, the meeting had to be canceled due to weather conditions. Again, I ask that the selectmen have the Charlton Housing Association board meetings televised because the public and the board members need to be made aware of what is actually taking place here at Charlton Housing. Thank you, the President, Kathy Fisher, Vice President Cedric Flower, Secretary Michael Pinchu, I'm going to say this wrong, Pintincura, Treasurer Andrea Bozak. And now I will turn it, let me go through really quickly the paperwork in front of you. You have my brand-new mold study done, because still, the 2013 mold study that was done, that you have signatures from every one of the tenants who they came into their home, is still not forthcoming from Jean, which you asked for. And I feel as though, if we're going to be honest, she should have given you that.
I have a question.
One at a time,
Okay.
one at a time. Mrs. Zafirovich.
This is the report that you did on your own?
That
using
is
your
my
own-
own report, correct.
So, just a quick, it's not really, it's not a summary page, but from what I can gather, there has been mold found.
And that was
three
just
kinds
one,
of
right.
spores, and
Yeah.
then medium.
And that was only one room that was done. There were many rooms done, but that was only one.
Okay.
And the mold that was in just that one is enough to worry the lawyer that there is a lot more forthcoming. And that is the apartment that you have the original mold study done on that was so bad, because the Band-Aid effect just covered it so that it's going to come back. And like I said, I'm not blaming her. I just think that she doesn't know, and I'm trying to bring this to light so that we can all work together and try to.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you. I just had a question. The apartment, the mold study that was originally done, the one that we have here from February of 2012, that was the same apartment that this was done,
That is
right?
correct.
And that apartment was cleaned up, but it was cleaned up with, by just washing
Scraped,
everything down
bleached, and
and bleach.
repainted, which actually does take
And wouldn't you
care of
say
it for
that's
a while.
a Band-Aid effect?
It's called the Band-Aid effect,
What
yes.
would be the
Because when
appropriate-
you look into it, I've been looking into, for 3 weeks, I've been really getting into all this, and that's why I put on there, if you have,
So is that why
anybody
the
has
mold
time
came
to look
back?
at that, it's coming back, yes, it's all gonna come back. It doesn't go away, it comes back. And
Okay.
especially because there is water leaking from my daughter's bedroom, from the top of the ceiling. You can feel the moisture. Every windowsill is wet. You go like this, there's water and black mold.
Okay,
So
thank
you
you.
can wipe it with bleach and it does go away, but it doesn't stop the mold from coming back.
Singer?
Mr. Chair, I was simply going to point out that, while I'm obviously concerned, and you have the reports here, but I think for this, unless I'm mistaken, the meeting you need to be having with this is not with us, but this very meeting with the Board of Health with these reports, and asking the Board of Health to take action, because I believe they're the only person with any authority to take action. And on the other matter, just because I'm not sure if we're going back and forth, but they just said they had no problem televising.
Yeah,
so-
I want to wrap up on the mold issue, then we'll talk.
Okay,
about
I do want Kevin to
televising.
have a say though, because he's been there for 18 years, and I would like to.
I'm actually gonna pass it this time and go to the Board of Health.
Thank you. Ms. Vincent, could I ask a question? And I want to ask you to come up to the table. How is the makeup of the Charlton Housing Authority board members determined? What is the,
Board members are elected by the town of Charlton.
all board members?
Four.
Four, okay, thank you.
The fifth one is appointed by the governor.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask one question? I would like to know how Mrs. Fournier knows what was done in that apartment. She's calling it a Band-Aid effect. Does she know what was done in that apartment?
We are, I'm going to put not out of disrespect to anyone, I'm going to put a wrap on this part of the discussion for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't have authority over the Charlton Housing Authority, at least on matters like this.
Then who does?
Excuse me?
Who does?
Board of Health.
Board of Health. On a matter like this, the Board of Health. So what I have asked the town administrator to do, where you did come to us, is to approach the Board of Health and ask them for any information they have on this. The most direct route for the Tenants Association, if you want to pursue this, is through the Board of Health. We had an issue in town not too long ago where we dealt with a similar issue, and we worked in support of the Board of Health towards that resolution. Our hands are tied. They have health agents, they have professionals that deal with these types of things, and more importantly, from your perspective, they have the authority to address the concerns.
Very good. So our number one reason to have the transparency and have the meetings videotaped, they said that was fine, so with that?
And Ms. Vincent, you just confirmed that, you have no problem Okay.
Okay,
That being the
that's
case,
great.
Drew. Can we make arrangements to get the Charlton Housing Authority meetings taped?
Televised.
Okay. And you have no issue finding out when they're being posted and all of that? That's
Mr. Chair.
very good. Mrs. Efrovich?
And just in general, I've been through some, selectmen training sessions, and the open transparency laws are in effect that anyone can go there with a tape recorder, anyone can go there with a camera. So it's open to anyone, so you could do that even without their permission.
Okay.
But we want it
Somebody up the
televised.
back wants to speak.
Yeah, I got that. If you have anything else, go now. If not, we have a gentleman in the back that would like to come up and speak.
Thank you very much.
I got a question.
Come up to the table, please, sir, and state your name, if you would, please.
My name is Richard Vincent,
If you'd sit down, please.
okay? I just have one little question. If the transparency for the housing authority is such a critical thing, how about the transparency for the housing association? Is that gonna be taped also?
If there are posted meetings, as Mr. Zafirovich said, if there are posted meetings, anyone's free to go in there.
We're not allowed.
Tenants Association
It's a
isn't
private
posted.
organization.
Oh, the Tenants Association is a private organization. We have no authority over that whatsoever.
That's a closed meeting.
Closed or open is not our decision to
Yeah,
make or
okay.
our way to enforce. We have
So it goes one way, but it don't go the other.
we have
Thank
no
you.
authority over that.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Walker?
Yeah, I really am a strong supporter of having all meetings televised or posted, because we have the opportunity to stream them live on television. And it's a great benefit, particularly to the seniors in town and to anybody who can't get out. So, and especially in the winter. So I would certainly encourage the Tenants Association to televise their meetings. I would encourage every board and committee to televise their meetings, whether they're appointed or elected. It can only benefit the residents of Charlton. And it's not so terrible to be televised. After a while, you get used to it. It doesn't make, you're the same person.
Okay, and we will report back based on what we get from the Board of Health. But again, going forward on that issue, that's going to be your best and most efficient and most effective avenue.
So you will give the Board of Health a date that you
We're gonna ask them for what information they have on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms.
yeah, thank you. I think the Board of Health has given us all that they have. What I would recommend is that the Tenants Association ask to be put on their agenda.
Well, I believe the lawyer that we've hired, the environmental lawyer, is gonna be getting hold of them by the.
However that's done, that's gonna be your most effective method going
I just
forward.
Right.
thought that you should have I was willing to give up mine to you because I thought it was important to show that, and actually it was good for them because it showed that it has improved from what they did, but that it is coming back, so.
And- Give us one second, Mr. Meskis, we'll be right with you. But we're getting very close, though. And as the board, we do appreciate the concerns of the Tenants Association, but we have to be very careful where our jurisdiction lies, what we can do, what we can't do, what we have authority to do, what we don't have authority to do. And on these issues, this really is a Board of Health issue. As far as the transparency goes, where the Charlton Housing Authority is an elected board, we do have the authority to ask our cable committee to broadcast, or at least record those. I'm not sure, based on the facilities, if a live broadcast is due, but at least record them for broadcast.
So just so that I'm not misunderstood, just this is for the Board of Health, but any other problems, where do we go? Is it-
Health-related issues will always be the Board of Health.
Right, but any other issues?
Any other issues, you're welcome to bring them to us, and if it's not under our purview, we can direct you where to go.
Very good.
And that may depend on what that issue is.
Thank you very much.
I think Jean could clarify that. There's a state.
I have a question.
Ms. Vincent?
Isn't there a state
Is
board?
there any chance that I could get a copy of that report?
It's introduced to the board, so that makes it a public document, so you could.
Yeah, mine.
Where it's given to the board, it's gonna go into, entered into the meetings, which makes it a public document.
This is all that there was?
That's it, right?
2 pages.
You want the whole thing that she handed out?
The whole packet.
Sure.
I think that's this.
So can I also ask before, I'm sorry, since we're still in the same forum?
You're gonna, again, that's, you would, if I was in your position, what I would do is I would go to the Board of Health. They have the authority to direct the housing authority to supply that information.
They may still be meeting.
The selectmen did ask for that, correct?
We did ask for it, we have no right to
Expect it.
require it.
Us.
But you got it.
We have it.
You have
We
it.
did get the report. If there's
have
new issues.
We have the
I didn't
report from
feel
2012.
like That's
We
the
don't
only
have the
one I
one
have.
from
Okay.
September.
2013 you did not get. We have the statements signed.
Okay,
that.
okay.
You did not get that.
But as far as any other reporting or any other information regarding the conditions, that would come from the Board of Health.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, there is, according to what I've heard tonight, there is another study that was done in the fall. Ms. Vincent said that, so that report needs to get to the Board of Health, too.
That would all be through the Board of Health, and they have the authority to require that.
Misunderstood something.
Excuse me?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I said, I think Ms. Walker misunderstood something. I said that there's another report.
Yes, you mentioned that in 2013 in the fall, you agreed that you made
Yes.
another study.
A report that you hadn't seen the results of yet.
Right, there's a study but no
Okay.
report yet.
Right, okay,
I think that's what it was. Was that, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, that's
what
correct,
you were
yeah,
referring to.
thank
Okay.
you.
okay.
Thank you to the Housing Authority for coming here. Thank you for the Tenants Association. And like I said, we will forward and get back to you with anything we get from the Board of Health, but it's going to be more efficient, more effective to follow that avenue yourselves.
And they may be meeting right now, if you want to go over.
Do we know how to find out the name of the company that was called to do that study?
That would be, again, that would be them.
Okay.
That would be
very
them.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Good
for
night.
your time.
Thank you, Ms. Vincent. Mr. We have a 7:20, we have a 7 o'clock, now a 7:25 appointment with Mr. Meskis to discuss electronic burning permits and building permits. Thank you for waiting, Mr. Meskis. Ms. Graver?
Mr. Meskets has been placed on the agenda to update the board and discuss electronic permits.
Greetings. Chief Cloutier apologizes for his absence. He's attending the Fire Chiefs of Massachusetts Professional Development Seminar. He would have been here with me last week or 2 weeks ago had the meeting happened. I want to recap some things that have happened and bring forth some new information, as a PR to the town so that they can get on board with this and know what's going on and update you folks on some things that have happened. So, last time we were here, we announced that on January 15th, we were going to start open burning permits online. And due to some concerns since that announcement and before January 15th that were raised by the citizens, the chief decided that he was going to hold off issuing open burning permits until January 22nd, which we did, and we have been issuing them. In that time, we developed a frequently asked question list. We developed step-by-step instructions for applying online, and coordinated with some other departments for the issuances of burning permits. All that information is available online. Just some methods here. The town webpage in the upper left-hand corner has an online permit links that brings you now to a landing page, and on that landing page is the links for all those instructions and frequently asked questions. That's going to be a permanent part of our websites. There's also a link on the top of the GOTMS page that says Chat Online. That will connect you with someone at GOTMS that can assist you in filling out the forms. They really can't speak to the process, but they understand how our forms work. So that can help you with that. I will also be posting some information on the landing page for directions on filling out permits that are relevant to my office. Some statistics, we've had 90 people register so far onto the online system and 50 permit applications for burning permits. 14 of those have been done in person, and we have made arrangements to have a kiosk outside of my office. It's actually been sitting there for a number of years waiting for this day to come, so that those people who don't have email or don't have a computer can come to the town hall during normal business hours and apply for a burning permit and pay the town collector. The fire department and the building inspections departments encourage you, though, to use the online system. When you use the online system, we are aware, and we did say that there was a fee associated with paying online. It's a convenience fee charged by the banking institution. It has nothing to do with the town. It's 25 cents for an electronic check and somewhere between $1 and $3 for credit card, depending upon which vanilla flavor of credit card you use. And that system is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for you to do that. As I said before, Nancy in my office will certainly assist people with filling out permit applications in the town hall for those of you who don't have computers or email at home. Creating an email address and not having access to that email address ever again doesn't do you much good, because notifications go to that email. Okay, activations of your burning permit is done through that email. But if it is done through our fictitious email that we use here, or our user that we use here, then when you call the fire station to activate your burning permit, then we can access it and check that box off. Staffing is limited, as we know, at the fire department, with calls for emergency services taking precedent at all times. Both make the ability of firefighters to assist with applications uncertain. So, you know, we're encouraging the online thing, but if there is firefighters there, they will assist to the best of their ability to navigate through this system. If you come there with a check and you already have an email account, there's a way to do it. You could come here to the town hall and do it. That would be, you know, I would say better, because we're here a certain set number of hours where the fire station people come and go.
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Miskis. Mrs. Zafirovich had a
So
question.
just through the chair, so one of the biggest issues that came up with this permitting process, and what I think a lot of people understood of what was happening, was you could not do it in person anymore. But from what you said, people will be able to come here, do it in person, and pay in cash or pay in person at their, not convenience, but when the town hall is open, that they can do it here as well as do it online.
That is correct.
Okay.
And just to follow up to that,
Ms. Walker?
yeah, I agree with Joe's concern. So when you say they're gonna do it themselves at a kiosk, is that a computer?
Yes.
So what if, there's a lot of amazing amount of people that don't use computers in this town. So, and that was, I was 100% for this whole program when it was initially brought forward, and I was just a cheerleader for it. But then it was brought to my attention there were a lot of other concerns, and one of them was that the only way you could do it was with a computer, and you had to pay 25 cents at a minimum. So, which isn't much, but it didn't seem fair to those people who aren't computers, don't even know how to type.
Nancy will assist them with doing that and do it herself. She has a logon specifically for these people that don't have email, don't have computer savvy, so that they will be able to pay here in person, get their permit.
And they can pay with cash.
And they can pay, yes, the
And
town collector
there's no
happily.
25 cents or anything.
No, the town collector doesn't charge 25 cents.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Mrs. Zafirovich, then Mr. Singer.
So during any regular business hours for the building inspection department, then can come in and get a burning permit there.
That is correct.
Mr. Singer?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Meskis. I think he's done an amazing job with this. I think, you know, little bumps popped up. He addressed them well, quickly, smoothed them right out. I just think he's done an amazing job with this.
And I have one more question.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you.
I'm not sure that Mr. Miskis is finished, but.
But that's okay.
You may be gonna address this, but the other issue that was brought to my attention, which I wasn't aware of, was that many towns do this kind of a permit for free. When we initially put it into effect, it was $10, and that was to pay for the clerk, and then that went up to $20. So if everybody's gonna do this online, I can understand there's 600 of these, so $20 for each one is a substantial amount of money. I just don't understand the justification for continuing to charge people for this service when it was, there's no clerk that we have to pay particularly for this. So that was the justification originally for charging the fee, so I wondered what happened to that.
I've been on the fire department for 30 years and been dealing with burning permits for probably about 25. So there was a time that the permits were free to town employees. That was brought up in some of these discussions, and we were found to be in error for doing that. our costs, you know, have gone up. There is a cost to operating this program. There is a cost for staff to monitor this program. I don't set the permit fees. If Chief Cloutier was here, I'm sure he could speak to it, but he is the fee-setting authority, to my knowledge, for those permits. I have seen them across this part of the Commonwealth from anywhere from $0 to $25, and I've seen them being good for the whole season, and some towns only issue them for 2 days. There's a prescription in the DEP regulations that talk about being only good for 2 days, but one of the things we discovered as we revamped this system is that even though the regulation says one thing, it means something else. And we had conflicting opinions from various boards and regulatory authorities for that is. So I don't set the fee. I can't, you know, justify the fee beyond that.
Ms. Craven?
The software cost, what was the software cost of this
The
permitting?
software cost setup is $10,000. The user fee for it per year is 3% of all fees collected. We looked at what the cost of setting up just this part of the program for fire department burning permits, and that cost out of that $10,000 was about $2,000. So.
And then there's an annual cost.
And then there's the annual cost. So at 3% of $10,000 is whatever that number comes out to, $300, right? If I'm doing my math right. So there's $2,300 to $2,500 a year right there.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you want to finish what you had,
So-
Mr. Meskus.
As I said, we encourage using the electronic system. Chief Cloutier also wants to make residents aware that daily permission to burn, in this case, we're talking about burning permits mostly, is still required, and the DEP and the Division of Conservation Resources, the Forest Fire Unit, has say in whether or not we're allowed to authorize burning. And it seems to be counterintuitive, but DEP is the holder of this regulation, and on cold, rainy days, they're looking at air quality and having smoke held to the ground. So what seems like a perfectly wonderful firefighting perspective day for burning, cold, wet, and rainy, DEP looks at it as a bad air quality day. Okay, and as we get into April, the season is going to get tougher and tougher. Okay, we've had prolonged periods of drought, what we're going to have for snow, significant amount in the next couple of days. But that time in March and April, when there's no leaves on the trees, the forest and areas dry out quickly. So the forest wardens come in and say it's a red flag day or it's a class 3 day, and we may have to shut down burning. So we're encouraging you to burn sooner than later. Okay, and finishing up, my office has just brought up electronic permitting for plumbing, gas fitting, wiring, and sheet metal. We just posted them on the website. We're poking around with them. We're going to get some contractors come in and say, okay, let's try this together and work through any issues that we have, and then as time goes on, we're going to bring more permits online. So that's
Mrs.
what I have.
Efrovich, you had a question?
I just want to thank you again, Kurt. I think one of the biggest issues is that we wanted the system as our main source system, but even with the permitting of the different building permits, that they be available to public to be able to do it in person, which I don't think that will be an issue, right?
That won't be an issue. The same thing, the town hall is open Monday through Friday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7:30 to 3:30, Tuesday, 7:30 to 7 p.m., and Friday, 7:30 to noon. So we'll be available. Just, reiterating, when we get to the spring and somebody decides on Saturday they want to get a burning permit, the town hall won't be open. So they can do it online. If they have issues, they'll have to wait until Monday when the town hall opens.
I just want to echo Mr. Singer's remarks and say that, really appreciate you really championing us and really getting through this, and I think it's going to be great for the town and its residents as a whole. I think it will save us a lot of money and save people a lot of hassle. But going back to the fire permitting fee, I think maybe we should ask Chief Cloutier to look into that, do some sort of assessment to see if $20 is an appropriate number nowadays.
We can certainly do that, and I believe final fees are set by this board. I believe the chiefs make, and the permitting authorities make recommendations, but I believe actually the board acts on their recommendations.
Can we look into this for the next meeting?
Not sure about the fire. Fire
Fire may be different.
Yes, I think I know we're operating under strong chief's laws here in Charlton. I do know that during this time, when we were hashing some of these problems out, Chief Cloutier reached out to other departments, so he already has a spreadsheet that I'm not conversant with. I've seen it that looks at what other towns are charging for fees, so.
And Ms. Craver, if you'd invite him to our next meeting, and we can discuss.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Salou?
I'd just like to also thank you, Kurt, and I know this was a tough road that you had to hoe here and getting up and swinging the bat to get this program off the ground. I hope all of our other departments, or some of the other departments that have the permitting, look more into this. I think the door is open now, and I think it's time that we do push and get this, make it a lot easier and accessible for people to do this, instead of having to come to the town hall here.
I've already started talking to the town clerk about dog licensing, something that we wouldn't do this year. This extends to all licensing for any department that wants to participate. The only ongoing fee is the 3% of permits issued. The setup fee has already been paid for. They're a very cooperative organization to work with, helping us through this and setting up our permits the way we want them. And they have some stock permits online too, so it does extend across almost everything the town does. Driveway permits, it has a complaint system, we'll work on that later, because you have to have the back end done. You can send complaints in, but if it doesn't have anywhere to go.
And if anyone does want to come in for a permit and, just by chance Nancy wasn't here on that day, I know Kara or Mary at the Selectman's office would be glad to help anybody, with their computer and help them get their permits online.
We're gonna have to give Kara some training before that can happen. We're looking at setting up another kiosk closer to the Selectman's office. Those people who can shop online can probably do this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Mr. Meskis.
Thank
You for waiting.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Walker?
I don't know if they want to, but I'd like to take Charlton Orchards out of order because they're my age and those chairs are darn uncomfortable. If I was them, I wouldn't want to be sitting here for another.
What I would like to do very quickly, if we could, and we appreciate your patience, is deal with our appointments and resignations, and when we get to new business, we'll take them first under new business.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna move back to appointments and resignations, and our first one is a resignation of a per diem dispatcher. Ms. Graver?
Yes, sir. Attached is an email from Jeffrey Broder resigning as per diem dispatcher for the Charlton Police Department due to his full-time employment. The board should vote to accept his resignation, and a letter has been prepared and is in your sign folder.
Motion to approve.
You have a motion to accept the resignation?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next up, we have a resignation as an alternate to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yes, attached, sir, is an email from Erica Lesage resigning as an alternate on the Zoning Board of Appeals. The board should vote to accept her resignation, and we have prepared a letter in your folder to sign.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
move that we accept Ms. Lesage's resignation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. And next up, we have an appointment to the Police Auxiliary.
Yes, sir. Attached is a request from Chief Purvier stating that with the recent resignation of Auxiliary Patrolman Bishop Ibram, he is requesting to fill said open position to restore the complement of officers who make up the Charlton Police Department's Auxiliary Police Unit. He has reviewed the Charlton Police Department's current pool of auxiliary police officers applicants and is selected and is asking for consideration the appointment of Robert McGrath. Mr. McGrath is fully qualified and holds all current MPTC and state certifications, which makes him eligible to be considered to fill an open auxiliary police officer position. A thorough background check was conducted and he has a clean record. Mr. McGrath's appointment will also be contingent upon his successful completion of a physical and firearms qualification with his duty weapons.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Mrs. Singer?
Through the chief, is any relation to current officer McGrath on the police department?
No relation.
What about current planning board member John McGrath?
No. His mother serves on the old home day committee.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
I move that we appoint Robert C. McGrath to police auxiliary for the town of Charlton.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Chief, you have anything you want to add on this?
Just that Mr. McGrath has been, even before this appointment, has been volunteering his time, helping us out, you know, with the Christmas lights, and he's just very enthusiastic about getting started. His actual graduation was supposed to be tomorrow night. He's completed all his courses, but the snow has put it off, so, because I was supposed to be a guest speaker there tomorrow night in Fitchburg at Fitchburg University for his class, so that's put off for a week, but all his certifications are all done. There will be a 20-hour firearms course that he's gonna participate in. That's all, paid all his own way through all his training, and, everything associated with it. But he wants to serve the community. He's a resident of Charlton, and I just think he'll be an asset as you go into the future.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Salute.
Mr. Chair, I happen to know Mr. McGrath personally. I know him to be a good quality gentleman. I know he just did finish on Saturday the last of his training, which included his pepper spray.
How did he do?
He tested on selecting salute.
I also had to receive that training also when I went to the academy. And it's not a fun training. But he took it like a man, and I think he'd serve our town very well and very proudly, and be a great asset to the auxiliary police force.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
aboard.
And welcome aboard. Welcome and good luck. Thank you. And lastly, under appointments and resignations, we have an appointment for a per diem dispatcher. Ms.
Yes.
Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached, you'll find a letter from Chief Purveyor requesting to add one additional per diem dispatcher to cover certain shifts on various days. In an effort to avoid the unnecessary payment of overtime, an immediate need exists to add the requested position. In reviewing the Charlton Police Department's current pool of per diem dispatcher applicants, Chief Purveyor interviewed and would recommend the appointment of Susan Dalton of Millbury, Massachusetts. A complete background check and reference check was conducted and revealed that Ms. Dalton has a good, clean record and a solid background and should be considered for the per diem dispatcher position for the Charlton Police Department.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move that we appoint Susan C. Dalton as a per diem dispatcher for the town of Charlton.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Mrs. Zafirovich?
Mr. Chair, through the chair, how many people applied for this? You said there was a pool of applicants?
I have an ongoing pool that people apply to, to the agency. We run ads through the CGIS system, and Ms. Dalton came forward and made applications. So I accept applications, running. Per diem dispatchers, there's, a lot of times, I've lost several, one to Auburn, one to Oxford, one to Leicester, so, they went full-time, so it's kind of in a constant flux. So Ms. Dalton works for Millbury. She's done so for 9 years, very, for all what I've known, and asked, about her, that she's an asset to them. Obviously, there's some hours that we can offer her that she's not currently getting, and basically, we just have to show her in our protocols and procedures. So, I welcome her experience in coming. But other persons, I accept their applications. And then what I've done with a lot of people is, I've sponsored them for training, which they go on their own time. And if they get through it and there's an opening, then, I've brought them in and you've appointed them in the past. I try as judiciously as I can to try and Because sometimes people, they come in and they believe that they can handle that environment, and then they don't, or it doesn't work out, not because they don't really try, but because all the multitasking and everything. So the idea is, so that's why you'll always see, and you could come to the station and I could show you the litany of different towns that are looking for people, because the more and more requirements that are placed on people, and you need to be a person that can multitask and stay up with all the standards. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair has its privileges, what can I say?
Get the same vote as we do.
We will now move on to new business, and we want to thank them for waiting. We will take this a lot out of order and invite the folks from Charlton Orchards to come up. And we'll get this started with Ms. Craver. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, attached is a letter from Nathan Benjamin, managing member of Charlton Orchards Farms and Winery. Mr. Benjamin states that back in August of 2013, the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission provided an advisory for sampling of alcoholic beverages with a farm series pouring permit. This advisory stated that the ABCC stated they would no longer allow tasting and sampling within a winery without a specialized license approved by the local licensing authority. Mr. Benjamin has filed a protest with the help of the Massachusetts Farm Wineries and Growers Association because Charlton Orchard does not wish to have a pouring license as they are not a wine bar. They use tasting as a way to market their farm product. They have been notified that sampling does not necessarily constitute consumption and grandfathered them pending the approval of the Board of Selectmen. I would agree and recommend that the board determine sampling wine under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, is not needed to be licensed and would see no need for a permit from the board at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you very much. Mr. Singer?
I would move that the Board of Selectmen find that sampling wine per MGL Chapter 138, Section 12 isn't needed to be licensed, and that there's no need for a permit to be issued at this time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments from the board? Then I'll start with myself. Mr. Benjamin, do you regulate the amount of tasting, the amount that you pour?
Yeah, it was always regulated. It was part of the law. It was specifically no more than 4 samples, 1 ounce. Behind the bar, where tip certified, we carry liquor liability just because within the state of Massachusetts we're point of last consumption. But we monitor it extensively. If someone comes in and they appear intoxicated, I have asked them to leave. So this is not drinking wine. This has always just been tasting. The consumption, 1 drink is considered 6 ounces. The most that someone could consume within our establishment is 4.
4 ounces. Thank you. Chief, have there been any incidents of problems up at Charlton Orchards relative to this issue?
No. I mean, we've gone there and they've had a problem with a theft or something like that.
No, I'm saying relative to this issue.
No, not relative to this issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Walker?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I will say that I have tasted the wine and bought wine at Charlton Orchards, and it was excellent.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a question, but it's unrelated.
If you're going to ask to have wine recommendations for dinner, I don't know if this is appropriate for that.
No,
but go ahead.
but Charlton Orchards, to me anyway, I see them as an integral part of this community. And I can't tell you how many pictures I have of my kids picking apples at your orchard. I did hear that there's a certain property for sale, which did cause me some disappointment, as I was afraid that that opportunity may not be available to my children for much longer. I was hoping that someone might be able to shed some light on that.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I was rear-ended, and it changed my life when it took away the use of my leg. So I no longer can get out there at age 54 and do what I used to do. And as you can see, my folks are in their mid-70s now. I have a daughter that is going to UMass and studying agriculture, but she wishes to be on the biology side, the research side, or the teaching side. She doesn't want to be in our field. My other two daughters, one wants to be a doctor, and Jill's a sophomore at Norfolk Aggie, and we kind of leave it up to, at 15, it's whatever they want to do. The problem is that with any business, the overhead is tremendous, and we either run it full tilt, or we figure out what other alternative we have. And we're just not in the position anymore to be out there every single day, 7 days a week, whatever hours it requires to do what we've been doing. My first request had always been to keep it as a farm, and Diane is handling the sale, and her first order is to find us a buyer as a farm. Others have come forward, but I've only shown it as a farm. I've shown it to 3 different, including Keown Orchards, as the possibility of a future buyer. There's a lot of different things. We have people that want to buy the winery right now and buy other aspects of our business, which would allow us to then stay on the farm and do pick your own for as long as I can continue to do pick your own. It's a matter of downsizing to a point where I could still afford to live on the farm and to take care of the farm.
Well, I'd like to express my thanks for all the Benjamins have done
Thank you.
for the community.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Good luck
Thank you.
going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to the top. Our first item under new business is a discussion of the annual town meeting. Ms. Craver?
Attached is the FY15 budget calendar for your consideration as required by the Charlton bylaw. The annual town election will be held on the first Saturday of the month of May, Saturday, May 3rd, 2014. The annual town meeting will be held on the third Monday in May, Monday, May 19th, 2014. Budget requests have been sent to the departments, and I have attached my cover memo for your review. You are requested to approve, if you do, the calendar for FY15 as presented, and if approved, open the annual town meeting warrant. The warrant is scheduled to close March 18th.
Okay, everyone has a copy of the calendar? And are there any questions for the town administrator regarding the calendar?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
there's no reason to make changes. I will just, or would like just to point out that there are a couple of dates on here where I will be out of state for business. Just so you're aware in advance. Only 1 or 2 of these dates I will be out of state, but the rest of them I'll be around.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to, with regards to the calendar.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs.
move
Zafarova?
that we approve the FY 2015 budget calendar as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just 2 things. One, that I think some of us should make the effort of attending some of these finance committees meetings just to make sure we're abreast of what's going on, and maybe report back to the board, just, so we're all on the same page. And 2, would like to see the department heads, I'm not speaking for the finance committee, but I think that's what they try to do nowadays, invite them all in to talk about their budgets, and it'd be a good time to meet, or at least be there while they're presenting, so we understand what their justifications for their budgets are.
There are also some site visits planned to highway, fire, and police for FinCom, and we have been invited to participate in those as well.
This week, actually.
Yeah, yesterday, I went with the FinCom to go to the police station. I was not able to make it to the fire department that day.
I think
But-
tomorrow we're not gonna make it.
I don't think tomorrow we're gonna make much of anything. Tomorrow was
Will we
canceled.
schedule that?
And Bay Mountain Farm is on Friday, I believe, in the morning, so
Yep.
I believe everyone's welcome to attend too.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. And I would entertain a motion to open the warrant.
So moved.
We have a motion to open the FY 2015 warrant. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, this one, the annual town meeting and election, you are opening a warrant, you're also, will be calling the election, on that warrant.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
believe further down on number 7, I've sent you some information regarding, you'll be talking, in number 7 about the Dudley Charlton Regional School District. We have received communication from the town of Dudley that they will be doing an additional election on March 18th to put a debt exclusion on. I don't know if you want to move that up and talk about that right after here, or if you want to.
No, I was that was in the back of my
Hold it
mind. I
down.
would like to bring that up now while we're on
Okay.
elections and all of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Walker?
I'd like to make a motion that we do as Dudley did and put it on for the, is it the 19th of March?
I believe it's 18th.
18th of March
We have a motion. Is there a second?
for debt exclusion.
You have a second, Mr. Singer? Thank you. Discussion?
So, Mr. Chair,
Mr.
so
Zafirovich?
there's no way that we could hold it during our regular election, that has to be March 18th?
We can hold it whenever we vote to hold it.
You know, I believe to hold an election, it costs, what, $6,000?
The estimate from the town
22,
administrator, I believe, was around $2,500 to hold an election.
One of, as you know, and just to speak, if I may, for the
Please.
people who are watching these, without this debt exclusion, the $2.2 million would be split between Dudley and Charlton. It would be split within their operating budget. It would not be outside. So as we only go up 2.5%, we try to squeeze everything into that 2.5%. We would also have to take on the debt. So a debt exclusion, as what you've just voted, would allow that to be outside of Prop 2.5.
This is regarding the track.
Yes, and it would be voted over time, which is the life of the athletic fields, then it is voted over time and borrowed.
Okay, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
My question is, what happens if we put it on our ballot and it passes Charlton, but it fails in Dudley?
Then please, Ms. Graven.
Okay. It's the same as the BayPath. When the BayPath did their vote for the new school, we did a debt exclusion, and the town voted to approve that, and then later on, they voted to authorize the money. It would be the same. How we pay for it is up to the individual towns.
And if it were to pass in one town, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if it were to pass in one town and fail in the other, the district would have the opportunity to call a district-wide election.
Okay, I want to be clear on what we're talking about, because we're talking about two different votes. The vote of whether or not they can actually spend the money, borrow the money, and spend the money, which according to our agreement, school agreement, they must get a vote of both towns.
Right.
To be able to borrow the money and spend that type of money. I was speaking more towards the actual debt exclusion, which a town can do separately.
Oh, I see, okay.
So for the first
Understood.
part,
Yep.
both towns, a majority of both towns will need to approve. For the second part, either Dudley or Charlton can decide however they want to finance
fund
it.
that.
But if the vote passes by both of the towns on the school district's warrant, we have an obligation to pay it.
So
Ms.
just further to Mr. Singer's question, if Charlton passes it and Dudley doesn't on the 18th,
My understanding it's the majority vote of both towns, or they will have to go.
so what
I'd have
happens?
to look and see whether or not then they go to a regular vote. I think they're just going straight for a straight district vote. So I don't think there is a Dudley and Charlton. I think it's a district vote.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
If I understand correctly, one of the motivating factors was a donation.
That's my understanding. I have not heard that they have signed paperwork to confirm that yet, but that is my understanding.
I was just curious then, if it were to fail, what would happen to the donation? Or, because it is not that far off, what opportunities will we have as a board to make recommendations publicly to support or not support that vote at this time?
Well, that's interesting you asked that question. One of the things that the town generally tries to do when we find out that we may be able to get a large donation, and we feel that financially would make sense for the town, we will limit and make it contingent upon receiving that. So one of the ways the school district could have done, written their warrant article could have been to contingent upon the extra $1 million, so that the two towns would only have to be paying $1 million. They didn't do that. So regardless of whether or not there is a donation or there's not a donation, if this passes, you will need to pay the full amount.
Okay, and then part of my reason for asking that was, as I'm sure you're aware, I've mentioned in the past, other concerns that may change how we feel about wanting to put money towards new facilities at Shepherd Hill. I mean, what opportunities will we have between now and then to perhaps discuss that and, you know, maybe get that out there, which could affect people's feelings on whether they want to vote for it or not.
Well, I think you have, as you know, you have meetings from now to then. You have, as you know, the meeting has been canceled for tomorrow night, where you would have been meeting with the school district and the town of Dudley, which would have been a perfect opportunity to have a conversation and ask any questions that you want. We're looking at rescheduling that, so I'll let you know when that is. I think they've got confirmation for next Tuesday. Originally, I thought it was going to be Wednesday and then the week down. Can the board, actually, let me ask you now, if you have your schedule, would next Tuesday work for you?
That's the 11th.
Yes, ma'am.
We have our roundtable meeting scheduled for the 11th.
You do, okay. I will let him know that.
That's only a little over a month away, so we're only gonna have
So-
like 2 meetings.
I have another question.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you. Just for clarification, I still don't quite understand. If we vote as a district, that means if there's 1,000 voters in Dudley that vote and 2,000 in Charlton that vote, 3,000 altogether, you just have to get more than 1,500 votes. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and second on the floor to hold a special election on March 18th regarding it for a debt exclusion for Dudley Charlton Regional School District. Is there any further discussion? Mr.
Chair.
Zafirovich?
So, to make it a district-wide vote, it would have to be the same day as Dudley, then? Or, like you said, no?
You're just going to be
No.
the same day.
No, what matters is the outcome, not the actual date of the election.
Well, we save money, because the school is paying for the election. They'll pay for half of they should be paying for half of the chips getting calibrated. All we need to do is to pay for 2 workers and the ballots. So there is a savings on having it in March 18th. And people who will be coming out to vote for this have awareness, know about it, and they'll have an opportunity to look at both of the questions.
Thank you.
And I have one more question, Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
Walker.
And I've been asked this by some residents. Why is the voting starting at noon time?
I do not know.
So who makes that decision, the
The
clerk?
school committee, the district, they called the election.
So they make the decision about the time, 12 to 8?
I believe BayPath may have done that also, didn't
They did, yeah, they did. And I
It's
just,
the district that
some people are
decides.
concerned about the time, that's all.
So, I'm going to assume that you are talking about holding at the same time.
That was the motion, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any other discussion? None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
So I'll write put together the warrant and put it in your sign folder, so if you're able to come in and get it signed, I need to get it to the town clerk.
Not tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow.
Next up, we have Cub Scout Pack 165 recognition of Cub Scouts. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a letter from John Gagnon, who, as the Cub Master for Cub Scout Pack 165 in Charlton. He states that on February 24th, they will be graduating several boys from Cub Scouting into the wonderful world of Boy Scouting. The attached list are the boys that have earned an Arrow of Light Award, which is the highest award that a boy can earn in Cub Scouting. Mr. Gahn is asking that the board to recognize these young men with a certificate of achievement for each, which have been completed and are in your sign folder. These must be sent to Mr. Gahn no later than February 18th. If you want to read the name.
And if I could, with the board's indulgence, I'd like to read this letter if I could. Dear Chairman Swenson, my name is John Gahan. I am the Cub Master for Cub Scout Pack 165 in Charlton, Mass. On February 24th, we will be graduating several boys from Cub Scouting into the wonderful world of Boy Scouting. All of these boys have earned the Arrow of Light Award, which is the highest award that a boy can earn in Cub Scouting. This award can be nearly equated to the Eagle Scout Award in Boy Scouts. In recognition of this achievement, I am asking those who represent us in our town, state, and federal governments to write a letter, certificate of achievement for each of the boys. The letters will be presented to each boy during their graduation ceremony on February 24th. My hope is that by receiving your letter, each boy will achieve a sense of pride in knowing that those in our government recognize their accomplishment. In addition, I believe that such a gesture will help motivate each boy to remain active in scouting. Enclosed with this letter is a list of names of those boys who will be graduating in February. If you are able to help me in this endeavor, I ask that you send me the letters, certificates by February 18th. This will allow me ample time to assemble the documents into packages for each boy. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Yours in Scouting, John Gahan, Cub Master. And the boys are, these following boys will be earning the Arrow of Light Award on February 24th. And they are Jacob Haywood, Aiden Romanelli, Connor Novak, Dylan Smaltz, Andrew Bullen, Cutter Beck, Cameron Bottomer, Evan Borgeson, Nathan Dexter, Joshua Woods, Michael Mullally, Albin Anderson, Connor Brown, Aiden Assisi. Thank you, John Gahan, Cub Master, Cub Scout Pack 165. So on behalf of the board, I think I can state very plainly, congratulations to these boys. It's a great achievement, and we do hope that you continue your careers in scouting. And to the members of the board, if you make sure we get these signed so that we can get them off in time. Next up, we have the Charlton Little League Parade. Ms. Graver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a letter from Jerome Michelson, Board of Directors, Member at Large for the Charlton Little League, stating that the Charlton Little League will be holding their opening day parade for 2014 on Saturday, April 12th. They are combining baseball and softball for the opening day parade. The parade will kick off at 11 a.m. from behind the lot of the old Southbridge Savings Bank building on Main Street. They will be lining up at 10:30 a.m. The parade will be followed by ceremonies at center field prior to the first games of the season. Members of the board, as always, are invited to participate in the parade.
Ms. Walker?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve, well, I don't know, we don't need a motion to approve, do we? But I just want to say that I'm delighted that girls are going to be included, because this is something that bothered me first time I went.
Well, I have to say, I coached in the Charlton, what was the Lassie League at the time, for 10 years. I was president of the Lassie League for 5 years, and they weren't always together, and that was a mission of mine to get that done. So I echo your efforts. It's wonderful to see that recognition, and
Because girls like parades.
and they like softball. Well, most of them.
Right.
Thank you. And next up, we, Little League Parade we did, Orchard we did, special license request for the Knights of Columbus.
Yes. Attached is a request from the Charlton Council 11379 Knights of Columbus for a special liquor license for wine and malt beverages to be used on Saturday, March 15th, 2014, from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. for a St. Patrick's Day dinner to be held at St. Joseph's Parish Hall at 10 H. Putnam Road in Charlton. This request has been approved by the Building Commissioner, Fire Department, and Police Department. The Fire Department has given the following stipulations. Please keep all exits clear. Tables and chairs must not block any exit discharge points. The Police Department has given the following stipulations. All persons serving alcohol must be tip certified and that no one under the age of 21 be allowed to purchase or consume alcoholic beverages. And all other requirements within the policy have been met. Per the board's policy, the license, if approved, should be issued for 2 additional days for the following reasons. Day 1 is to allow the delivery of the alcohol to the establishment. There'll be no sales allowed at that time. Day 2 for the sale on the approved date and time as listed. And on the 3rd day to allow for pickup of any unused alcohol. There'll be no sales allowed at that time. I would recommend the board approve the special license as requested with the dates on the license to be March 14th, 2014 through March 16th, 2014. This is for a nonprofit organization, therefore the fee will be $25.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I move that we grant the special alcohol license through St. Joe's to the Knights of Columbus, so long as everything as stipulated by the building commissioner, police and fire chiefs are met, and that it be valid for 3 days from March 14th through 16th, with no sales allowed on the first and third day, with a $25 fee.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. And this is going to be a good one. Ms. Craver, an update on our snow and ice deficit expenditures, please.
Yes, sir. We've received a notice from Jerry Foskett, Highway Superintendent, that the snow and ice account is close to being exhausted. Therefore, he is asking the board to declare a snow emergency and approve the deficit spending in the snow and ice account for FY14 as authorized by Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D. If approved, the Finance Committee will also need to vote on this issue before the account can be overspent.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Zafirovich?
I move that we declare a snow emergency.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Chair,
Mrs.
a comment on
Zafirovich.
this. Serving on the Finance Committee, I knew about this. We've done this, this is typical operating procedures, where this is one of the rare accounts that we can overspend, because it's hard to really pin down how much money you'll need per year for snow and ice removal. So, as per every year, we always tend to deficit spend that account.
Chair. Thank you. Mrs. Salou?
Just for the point of reference, we are in an above-average winter right now, and above-average snowfall. And I don't see this getting any better for us right now. And I know we're also with salt is becoming a item to be had around here right now. So
It is.
I know Jerry's stocked up plenty for us, but I know it's an issue. We're on a waiting list right now, so.
Thank you. And we will move on. The last item under new business is our roundtable on Charlton economic growth. Ms. Craver?
Let's
Number
go
8.
back to number 7. Did you want to?
We already did that. We acted on that when we acted on the
Um,
others. We set the
sure.
election date for March 18th.
Okay.
Did we have anything else we needed to do?
I'm
on
just
this?
checking to see if there was anything else.
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I thought Ms. Craver mentioned that Dudley also is including a debt exclusion on the same ballot, so there'll be 2 questions, whether Dudley can spend that money and how they'll pay for it. I think that's something maybe we should discuss. Is that correct?
No, actually, I'm lost without going through my memos. So let me just jump down. In this memo, what we were going to talk about was I was going to inform you about the superintendent sending you a letter to hold a special election. I just want to go through this for the people that were at home that
Okay.
may not know this, and because we went right to going to a special election, and some of them
Sure.
may, one, not even know why we're
That's fine.
doing a debt exclusion. So if you don't mind
Please.
indulging me. Attached is a letter from Sean Gilrain, Superintendent of Schools, stating that the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee voted to hold a special election to renovate the Shepherd Hill Recreational Facility track, athletic lighting, and concession stand. Now you can say, oh, now I know what they're talking about. Okay. By unanimous vote of the committee, the following ballot language is presented to authorize the borrowing of $2.2 million for the project, including the payment of all incidental or related costs, as well as borrowing. Any borrowing shall be reduced by any grants or gifts received by the district. After consulting the Dudley and Charlton town clerks, the election date has been set for Tuesday, March 18th, from 12 to 8 p.m. at the Heritage School located at 34 Oxford Road. With the ballot question being, do you approve of the vote of the Regional School District School Committee of Dudley Charlton Regional School District on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014, to authorize the borrowing of $2.2 million for the purpose of renovating the recreational facility, track, athletic field, lighting, and concession stand, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, which borrowing shall be reduced by any grants or gifts received by the district on account that the project, and which vote provides as follows. Voted that the Charlton Dudley Charlton Regional School District hereby appropriates the amount of $2.2 million for the purpose of paying costs for renovating the recreational facility, track, athletic field, lighting, and concession stand, including the payment of all costs incidental related thereto, the project. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the Regional District School Committee. To meet this appropriation, the district treasurer, with the approval of the Regional District School Committee, is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16N, and the district agreement as amended or pursuant to any other enabling authority, provided that the amount to be borrowed shall be reduced by any grants and gifts received by the district on account of the project, and then there's a yes or no. In light of this, would the board like to invite representatives from the Dudley Charlton Regional School District to your next meeting to provide more information? Also, the board and finance committee have talked about a debt exclusion for a large capital. Would you like to see if we could add a ballot question on the school's ballot? I believe you have 35 days to provide the town clerk a warrant, which would be February 11th, if you are interested. I would recommend funding the highway and police capital at the May annual town meeting and asking for 2 fire apparatus as a debt exclusion. I've attached the fire department capital request. So that was the last piece that I did want to make sure you did not miss.
Thank you. And as we stand now, we have voted as a board to hold a special election on March 18th regarding the debt exclusion for the school project. So we have no other action we need to take at this point on that, correct?
Not on the actual 2.2. The question would be, now that you are going to do a warrant, and you've voted a warrant for debt exclusion for the district vote, do you want to add another one? And there's pros and cons. Some would say if you add something else, then it may take away from the school vote.
So do we want to add for fire,
Or
police?
do you want to let people know that you do have, a large need also? And I believe that capital is attached here. Yes. So it would be, what he's looking for is to replace and combine tanker 1 and engine 5, and the replacement cost of that would be $321,840, along with replacing the ladder truck, which is $1,049,760, so approximately $1.3 million.
So I'd open it up for discussion amongst the board. Would we want to add a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Walker?
Do we have to decide that tonight? Okay.
In order to have time to post.
Right,
we do.
right.
Any thoughts, questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Walker?
I really am of 2 minds on this, so I would benefit from hearing what everybody else thinks. I think I've long felt that we should fund capital improvements with a debt exclusion because doesn't come out of free cash. It leaves us more money for our operating budget. And from my knowledge, being aware of what's going on inside of Boston and inside of 128, the towns there, they're almost all doing debt exclusions for their capital items. And interest rates are very low still, so we could take advantage of that. At the same time, what Robin brought up is a value, is it's going to dilute the whole issue with the schools. So I'm in between.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Singer, then Mr. Zafiro.
I'd also point out that going the debt exclusion route, unless I'm mistaken, it goes away once it's paid for.
That's
So
correct.
it's not a permanent increase, which is
Right.
another benefit to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
It's a specific purpose. Once it's paid for, it goes away.
Mr. Zafirovich?
I would have to take a stance where I think it's more appropriate to have this probably during the annual town election than have it on the special election, which really should be focused on the schools.
Brent?
I agree with Joe. I think we should stick with the schools and put this into our annual town meeting and see. I mean, this is the direction I've had other citizens and some discussions I've had about spending our capital through the debt exclusion. I just, once we start to open that door with that, though, we're gonna have a lot of capital expenditures we're gonna need to look at, I believe.
Okay, you're referred to the town election, not the annual town meeting, but the town
Absolutely,
election.
yes.
Yeah. A concern with that, just to put all the cards on the table, is that should the school debt exclusion pass, people might be thinking twice about spending $1 million, $1.5 million on fire equipment after just authorizing $2 million on school fields.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
I think, well, it's a valid concern, but I think that they may have that concern whether they're voting at the same time or voting later. You know, they know, if they watch or read the papers, they know we're discussing it. So if you ask them at the same time, or if you ask them later, they know it's coming. So that may already be in their minds when they're voting for one anyway. And for me personally, I mean, honestly, I don't care if it's spring. I'm happy to wait till fall. As long as I think we need to address it this year, though.
I think we're talking about holding the election, this question of ballot during the May election, not the fall election.
The question is, do we want to put
Usually do it
another
in the fall.
article on the March 18th special election, or wait till the April regular election?
Well,
That's the question.
Mr. Chairman, don't
Ms.
we
Walker.
usually do that in the fall? Or we
would
don't
have to
usually have capital
Well,
stuff on
we
that?
do, we tend to do capital expenditures in the fall. However, if we're going to seek a debt exclusion for
We'd
this,
do it in
we do
spring.
that. We've done
Okay,
those.
and just
both
one more
ways.
thought. One of these issues is what I would consider, I'm sure everybody wouldn't agree, but I would consider a want. The other one's a need. And need trumps want all the time. And so one's a safety issue. And one's a benefit of quality of life issue, maybe you could put it that way. So that's something we should also think about.
And I think, Mr. Chair, that later on, we should have the discussion when we're putting together the warrants for the election. That's a topic, I think, that's ripe for discussion and debate. But I think right now, we're just choosing whether or not we would want that on this upcoming ballot, which I personally think we should hold off until May.
My thought, if I may, on that is probably the same as Mr. Singer's and Mr. Zafirovich's for a little bit different reason. I think that the school district called this ballot. They're absorbing some of the costs of this. I think we should give them their ballot. I think the townspeople expect regular business items to come up at the annual meeting. And we've had times before where people thought we were trying to slide something through by putting it on a special. And so.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Salou?
It may, if the vote for the school does not pass, it may make it a little easier for the voters to then vote in the debt exclusion for the capital expenditures.
Ms. Graver?
So, if I'm hearing that the board is thinking not to do this, to put a debt exclusion on for the March election, for the sake of transparency, and as many of you have expressed, to let the people know that you are going to be coming back. Perhaps what you might want to do is direct me to draft you up a warrant article for the election.
For the regular town
Right,
election.
so that at least it's out there saying that you are going to be having this on the election. So
Mrs.
if
F.
you may, make that decision.
Mr. Zafirovich?
I think that's a good thing to do, but I think we should have that discussion first. I think the Finance Committee should also debate that. I think we should come together and decide how we want to phrase it and how we will go about doing it if we want to do it.
My suggestion was only to ask me to draft it for your
Okay,
consideration.
okay, no, that'd be fine then.
Is everyone in agreement that we should ask the town administrator to draft to a warrant article regarding a debt exclusion for safety apparatus?
Ballot question.
A ballot question. I don't think we need to take a vote if we're all in just agreement on that. Okay, if you would, Ms. Graver. And then we can meet with FinCom and take it from there. Ms. Walker made a very good point. To a lot of people, those fields, the condition of those fields is every bit as important as.
My grandchildren play on them, I know it,
My
but
kids played up there as well, so.
they play on them now.
Okay, now we can move on to the roundtable.
Thank you.
The Finance Committee met Wednesday, January 22nd, and did their goals and objectives for FY15. One of the goals included hosting a roundtable for promoting economic development in town through education and review of present processes regarding permitting and review. Some members claimed that Charlton has some areas that could be improved. Selectman Safarovich attended the meeting and suggested that the Board of Selectmen should be involved in the event and it could be a joint venture. It was also suggested to use a recent project, Ted's Package Store, as a test case to review what went well and what could be made better. The conversation was centered on making Charlton a more attractive place to live and work, as well as generating more revenue for the town. To that end, after speaking with Chairman Swenson and Chairman Morrell, an invitation was sent to the town inspectors, Board of Health, Planning Board, Economic Development Commission, and Water Sewer, inviting them to a roundtable meeting to be held in the Senior Center February 11th, 2014, at 6 p.m. I've attached the notice. We are looking at a speaker to talk about growth and development issues across the state and in the region, as well as have invited Ted's Package Store to talk about their experience.
Mr. Chair?
And I just will add that you do have here, the planning board had declined the offer, and the EDC also declined the offer today.
Mrs. Zafirovich.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to talk about, I kind of was there to help plant the seeds in this, attending a Worcester County Selectmen Associated meeting where Tim Murray spoke, who is the current chairman of the Worcester Chamber of Commerce. There was a lot of great ideas out there, a lot of new things that people want to try and push for. And from what I hear from a lot of prospective people who are going to Charlton, people who done work in Charlton, is we are not a friendly environment to do business with. And that was very troubling to hear. So I thought that we could not just be a one-time event, but be a series of discussions and series of studies to kind of, see where we are, where can we go, and where can we make Charlton a better place to do business. And I think the reason why Ted's Package Store was selected as not really as a test case, but more of a case study to look at what happened, because it was a major multi-million-dollar project that involved a lot of the town permitting process, and something we can look at. We may have some good things in place, may have some bad things in place. I think it's a really good forum for everyone to get together and discuss the overall process, the overall way we do things in Charlton, and the way we can improve, or even recognize what we're doing great, and possibly make it better. From what I heard from the Planning Board and the EDC about how they strongly believe that what we're doing now is working the best and is not even worth discussing about, I find that very, very troubling. It's just opposite of what I hear from a lot of people in town, and I think we need a stronger commercial base in town. From the recent defeating of the 2.5 override, we need a better income to catch up with what's going on in town, to catch up with our needs. And this is one strong way of doing it. And I think we should really come together as a town, being the town's parents, being the town fathers and mothers, that instead of just bickering, we should come together and work together. We may not, tell the planning board what they can do, and, they don't tell us what to do. But it doesn't mean we can't just come together and talk about this. From what their stance on this issue is, I find it very troubling that they have their blinders on almost and don't want to have that discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Mrs. Singer?
I agree, actually, very much so with Mr. Safarovich. And I'd like to point out that the request for the roundtable was, as some people may have assumed from what I read was political, was simply done in the spirit of cooperation. I don't care how old you are, you don't know everything, and you never stop learning. And to me, the roundtable was a simple opportunity for everyone to come together in just that, the spirit of cooperation, and see if we can't learn from each other and find better ways to do things in the town of Charlton looking forward. Because like Mr. Safarovich, I've heard an inordinate amount of complaints about doing business with the town. And I think that it's just a simpler to get everyone to come together at one time than to have people going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, to just have one simple meeting and just have everyone hopefully find out where everyone is and ideas and thoughts, just the sharing of information and ideas. It would be valuable to the town of Charlton.
Thank you. Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I commend both Mr. Safarovich and Mr. Singer for their views on this, because I essentially agree. On the surface of it, it really does look like a good idea. And certainly the more communication we have between boards and between groups, the better off we all are. The problem, I have two problems with this whole issue. Both really have to do with process more than, more than the issue itself. The first one is that the Board of, I didn't know about this until I was called. I got a phone call, and it said, I got an invitation by the Board of Selectmen to come to a roundtable. Well, I didn't know anything about it. We had never voted on it. We had never decided to have a roundtable. So when I looked into it, it appeared that the Finance Committee really wanted to do this. Joe was at the meeting and suggested, as he said, that the selectmen might want to be involved. Robin sent out, I think she really expected that we'd have a meeting before the thing got sent out, and we didn't have the meeting, so the invitation got sent out saying the Board of Selectmen invites you, and that memo is in here. And that's one thing that's a serious problem for me, because as a member of the Board of Selectmen, this board did not agree to hold that roundtable, to my knowledge. Let me just finish.
Well,
If I could.
No, I haven't recognized you yet. We let Ms. Walker finish.
Thank you. So that's one issue. The second issue is more delicate in the sense that there is a backstory to all this. And the backstory is simply that there has been considerable dissension between the planning board and some of the people that, you know, are gonna be coming to the roundtable, to the extent that there was yelling and screaming involved, from what I've been told. And that level of emotion, of discussion, of being very, very angry with each other, I don't know who started it, who yelled, or who didn't, but it did happen, and maybe on more than one occasion. And for us to ask another board to come to a meeting, and it feels to me like a confrontation. Now, I don't think it was meant that way, and I don't think that's what the intention was, but that's the way it feels, and I'm certain that the planning board and the EDC see it that way. So in the interest of getting them involved in a positive way, I think they feel that they've been backed into this, and they're upset about it. So those are my two major concerns with this whole process. The idea of it all, I think, is commendable, and I would support it, but I would, before I sent something out and before I held it, I would make sure that everybody was on board with it, and that they basically agreed with the idea of coming together, because you can't, nobody's gonna come into your business and say, I wanna help you look at this better, and you're gonna say, well, why? You know, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Well, I just wanna help. I mean, it doesn't wash. It doesn't, it feels like a critical thing. And then when you happen to know that one of the people that are gonna be there is somebody that you've had a lot of conflict with, the planning board makes a lot of hard decisions, and certainly there's finance committee members that have suffered through this in there, because at least one of them is a developer. And so it starts to look funny. It starts to look odd that they want to call the planning board in and talk to them. And so I am very uncomfortable with that, and I guess I probably would have pointed that out had I known that this was gonna happen in the first place. But going back to the whole, I just didn't know about it, because this board did not vote on it.
Mrs. Zafirovich.
So there was 2 points brought up. I would like to really address one at a time. That's why I interjected myself, because I feel as though sometimes we get lost if we, talk about 2 things at once. The first thing, Ms. Walker, when you brought up the
Excuse me. Sorry.
that the fact that you were unnerved by that this meeting was called without the consent of the board, I think it's within the powers of the chairmans of different committees to organize meetings. I think that's the way it was done, that there was enough support to really organize the meeting and send out invitations to those who would want to attend.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Walker?
I really don't agree. I think the chairman, if he wants to have a meeting with another board, it's been the practice of this board to consult with the other board members. I mean, you were the only selectman at that meeting. So, and I think your suggestion was reasonable and warranted. I just think that after that happened, it should have gone back to the whole board before it was sent out. And then maybe if I had concerns, I could have brought them up then.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Singer, then Mr. Zafirovich.
I agree with certain points from both Ms. Walker and Mr. Safarovich. Regarding Ms. Walker's concerns about the process, I will agree with her that even though certain positions may have certain authorities, if there is precedent or past practice, I think we should honor that past practice. As far as the meeting itself, there was talk of yelling and whatnot, but as highly paid department heads, I would expect a level of professionalism from them that I'm not seeing. And I'll say that flat out. I'm very disappointed. Even if you don't get along with someone or there are contentious issues, that process is done. At this point, people need to be professionals, put their personal feelings aside, and come to these meetings and not be, I want to play with so-and-so. You know, this isn't about certain individuals. This is about the community, the town of Charlton, and what's in the community's best interest. So regardless of what may have happened in the past between certain people's interactions, they need to maintain a level of professionalism and put the town first, put their feelings aside, and come together, hopefully come together in the spirit of cooperation, and be professional about it. As far as who was invited, I wasn't a part of that. I have no problem, whoever people want to invite, somebody different or who was already invited, that's fine with me, but I think it's a good idea to have the meeting. I think that there is an opportunity here for lots of people within the town of Charlton to learn from each other and from others. And I'd hate to see that opportunity lost.
Mrs.
I
Zafirovich.
think Mr. Singer, really, that was the intentional, I believe, the spirit of this meeting. And even as Ms. Walker said, there's a perception, I think, through the EDC and the planning board that we're calling them to talk to them, that they're saying that we're holding this meeting to really, yell at them, tell them what they did wrong. That's absolutely not the case. But Ms. Walker, in point number 2 earlier, you mentioned how that, the process was a big issue, and the planning board really kind of denied that. I believe in an email from Chairman McGrath where he said that they felt that the board felt that the process is good as it is and doesn't need to change and doesn't really think we should have this kind of meeting. And that's the kind of perception, that's the kind of attitude I think is really not conducive to going forward and making improvements in the way we do business with business in Charlton.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Joe. When I said the process, I wasn't talking about the process of permitting or getting buildings built or anything like that. I meant the process for setting up the roundtable.
Right. Well,
And so that's specifically the concern that I have. The overall, as I said before, and I'll say it again, the overall concept of having a roundtable, when we have the all-town boards meeting twice a year, and it works very well, but it doesn't go into the depth that you're talking about. The overall roundtable issue is a good idea. And I just think that before it gets set up and before it gets moved ahead, you need to have everybody on board, or at least gonna send some representatives, because it's just sort of a waste of time if they're not gonna be there. And I think that you have to make sure before you set the meeting up, before you invite everybody, before you do all the invitations, that the major players are okay with it, and that they don't have any concerns themselves. That's all. It's just a courtesy kind of thing.
Mrs. Zafirovich, did you have something else?
Just that, one of the things, the reason why, you believe you said that reason why they objected because the way we viewed it. And in the email correspondence with the planning board, where they said that we don't think this kind of venue is appropriate. Why don't you come to our meeting and talk to us on our terms? I think that's also not, I think, go back to the bickering between these boards where we kind of have to, put that aside and come together. But to address your concerns about doing the process, I think, setting out the invitations was the way to start that negotiation process, to start that talking about how we should do this, and really say that we really want to do this, we really want to put this forward. I think that's the reason, the spirit of how we invited all these members for this discussion.
And basically, through the chair, basically I agree. I think we should go to their meeting and ask them. And we had a sort of a taste of that earlier with the housing meeting tonight. where we wanted to talk to them about the pilot program. They said, no, you come to our meeting. I mean, this is what boards do, and you know, we agreed to do that. I don't blame them. The selectmen are the board that oversees all the town issues. However, we don't have any more power than any other board. In fact, we have less. We certainly have less power than the Board of Health. We certainly have less power than the Planning Board. So I see our role as mediator, as a board that tries to make things go smoothly in town, that tries to, certainly Rick has personified that, and tries to make things work in this town, and not to adjudicate, not to lay down laws, and not to tell people what to do. So we've tried to, you know, in at least the last 6 years that I've been on this board, not all 12, we've made a really good faith effort to be more approachable, a more reasonable board, and I think we've achieved that to a great extent. And I don't want to lose any of that. I don't want to get into any kind of a power play with another board. It's really not in any of our best interest, and certainly not in the towns or in the boards.
My turn. I've been involved in this process. I first approached the chairman of the Finance Committee and Ms. Craver about this process back in the fall. And with holidays and all that, it never went anywhere, and Mr. Zafirovich went to the Central Mass meeting and went to the FinCom meeting, and in discussions, it came back up again. The thought process on this from the beginning was, and it's fair to say that business analogies don't always work. My thought process in this is, when I complete a large process in my business, I sit down with all the parties involved and say, okay, how'd we do? What could we do better? The Seattle Seahawks just won the Super Bowl 43-8. I promise you, if they haven't already, within the next week, they'll be sitting down and saying, how could we have played that game better? Where were our mistakes? As Ms. Walker correctly stated, economic development is key to this town's future. We need commercial economic development. We just had a large, as Mrs. Zafirovich said, multi-million-dollar project that was built in this town. I thought it was appropriate to sit down with all parties involved in that process and say, okay, what can we do better? This was never meant, in my mind, and in several discussions with the chairman of the Finance Committee, this was never meant to call anyone in, to take anyone to task, to be a shouting match, to be anything other than a chance off camera in a room to sit and have an open and honest discussion about, could the process be made better, and if it could be, how? The planning board is an elected board, as has been stated here by a few people. We have no authority over them. They weren't called to our meeting. They were invited to attend. I spoke with the chairman of the planning board this afternoon, and one issue that he had was the tone of the letter that came from Ms. Craver. That letter is part of this public record. After I spoke with him, I read it several times, and for the life of me couldn't find anything in there that reflected any other tone other than we want to get together and talk. Plain and simple. I may ruin everything you just said about me in the next 5 minutes, but we'll
It's all right, I'll get my own back.
there you go. A couple of things. I was, like Mrs. Zafirovich and Mrs. Singer said, and I'll state it, I was extremely disappointed to hear the EDC and the planning board decline the invitation. And again, it was an invitation. To further that, and I will say point blankly, I was offended today when I read in the newspaper that the town planner said because the selectmen were involved in this, this has become a political meeting. There is nothing, and I will state that clearly for the press, for the TV, and for the minutes. There is nothing political about this meeting. We're all charged with the goal of making this town financially stable and to grow this town. To do that, we all need to work together. And the idea of inviting the Morskowskis was my idea. I extended them that invitation personally. Their goal in coming to this was not to, with an axe to grind, was not to yell at anyone, was not to make a statement. It was to say, here is our experience, these are the things, these are the challenges that we faced. And for everyone sitting around this round table to say, okay, can these challenges be addressed? And how could they be better addressed? I was also disheartened to read in the planning board's letter back to us that they felt that the processes were just fine and there was no need to look at them at all. I was also distressed to hear a member of the EDC say in the paper that there is nothing to be learned. If we want to take exception to the chair's calling a meeting, that it should have been discussed here, due to weather concerns, we've had one meeting since, I think, Thanksgiving. If someone wants to say it should have been brought before the board, we should have been voted on its board, I'll take that, that's fine. As far as the process goes, I think it's a good process. I'll defend the process. I think it's a good opportunity, which is why I'm in favor and glad to see that the meeting's still gonna go forward.
Mr. Chair,
I'm done. Mr. Singer?
I will agree with you. I read the letter. I could not find anything in there whatsoever that had any type of nasty tone. I'll point out, and this came to my mind while Ms. Walker was talking, that regardless of whether you're on the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, or the EDC, the bottom line is you're a representative of the people of Charlton. And you answer to the people of Charlton and have to do what's in their best interest. And that means keeping an open mind and always trying to grow and learn and see what we can do to make the town better and our processes better. Mr. Chair, you said you were offended. You pointed out something, that there was a comment about nothing can be learned. I'll add to that and say that I think that, to me, that evoked arrogance and closed-mindedness. There's always something to be learned. We can always continue to learn from others, and that's what this is an opportunity for.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Efferovich.
To go along with that, I think a process that the town has chosen to take over the past few years now in regards to economic development of combining the position of the EDC director, which is once a separate position from the town planner, has been combined with the town planner. I don't think that whole process or that way of doing business is correct or working right now. I think we should have discussions and talks about maybe changing the way we do that and possibly bringing back and separating those two powers and those two responsibilities, and maybe looking into getting a part-time person dedicated for economic development.
If you, I want to address that first if I could. If that's something that you would like to propose, I would ask the town administrator to put that as a future agenda.
Yes, that's why I'm bringing it up now. I don't want to take any action now. I just want to say I think that's something we should discuss and look into.
What is that?
We want an agenda item for the next meeting to discuss separating the, Mr. and Mrs. Efferovich, I'll let you state it.
Of bringing back the part-time position of economic development leader,
Coordinator.
a coordinator, and
town planner. Ms. Walker, then Mr. Singer.
Yes, sir.
You can go double.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I saw your
Okay.
hand, I'm sorry.
So that feels to me like punishment. Now, it doesn't, maybe it's not, but look at it this way, just for a second. You're in the position of the planning board of the EDC. You've been told to come to a meeting, or invited to come to a meeting, where the process of permitting and going through all the efforts that you go through to get a building built with a developer is going to be examined for best practices. And certainly the Seahawks and everybody else does this in business. However, it's initiated by them. In other words, somebody doesn't come in and say to the Seahawks, well, except for their manager, and we're not their manager, that we've got to look at best practices here. You do that because you're ahead of your own business. So you take advantage of hindsight and look at what you did and what could have been improved. However, if you're one strong board inviting another strong board to come to a meeting with a developer who you've had considerable conflict with over the past 6 months, until the building was built, considerable. I had no awareness of this until today, but there was a lot of screaming and yelling that went on, and a lot of dissension. And you've invited by another board to come to a meeting that they're holding, and talk about best practices. It just does not feel right, and that's where they're coming from. It just feels like they're being sabotaged and they're being set up. Now, I don't think that's anybody's intention, but that's the way it feels, and that's the way it looks. Now, if you really want things to change in Charlton, and not just get people to do things the way you want them to do them, if you really want things to change, if you really believe that the process of building in Charlton is difficult, more than just rumors that you've heard, but actual facts, then you need to get those people on board. You need to get them on board so that they're wanting to look at their own best practices. I'm sure that they do that anyway, but you can't enforce that. First of all, you're not an enforcement agency, and second of all you're going to do is make them feel more resistant and more defensive. You've created a scenario here that's bound to fail. It can't succeed. And now you're talking about doing something that will cause them even more aggravation, and they will fight you on this.
Mr. Chair?
No. Well, thank you for acknowledging, first of all, that they were invited, not told to come. It was an invitation. They were not told to come. Secondly, first, saying that they feel that they're being set up, I take reading into that they feel that neither the chairman of the Finance Committee or the chairman of the Board of Selectmen can run a meeting without it getting out of hand and can't control a meeting, which I take exception to. And again, what's been stated here many times, and I think it has to say, no one's calling you up saying, we have to look at these processes, they have to be made better. I don't know if they can be. That's not what I do. I don't know that. I don't have that answer. And whether there was any antagonism or not between any developer in town and anyone else, anytime you have a project, a sizable project like this, I feel there is value in sitting down and saying, what can we all do better? All of us. No, that's not pointing a finger. That's not saying anyone did anything wrong. It's saying, let's try to learn something. And I think we can always learn something. Mrs. Zafarov, Ms. Graver?
Just a point of order. And I just realized this just to help the people at home. Mrs. Walker is talking very passionately and as if she has knowledge about their feelings. She may want to disclose her relationship with one of the members of the EDC so that the people at home are just aware of that if they're not.
Sure, thank you for mentioning that. My husband, Mike Lally, is a member of the EDC.
Mrs. Zafarovich, then Mr. Singer?
So one of the reasons why they're objecting is because of what's going on with the relationship between TED and the planning board. But the planning board flat out said that we think nothing's wrong, we don't think we should have it. That's why, one of the reasons why they're saying no. So originally they didn't mention anything about TED. So I find that pretty disturbing. But to mention our role as selectmen, you're right, Kathleen, we don't have that much power per se, but we are the figureheads of this town. We are here to make sure we lead this town, and we champion this event. The reason why nothing's been done over the years is because no one's championed this. That's why we're stepping forward to champion this kind of discussion so we actually get something done instead of just muddling around and doing nothing. And you mentioned, and going back to what Mr. Gordon said about Ted and just his rejection, I find borderline slanderous. And Tarek and Ted Murkowski sent a letter back to the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if I can read that out. Would you like to read it?
All yours.
I think you better read all of them then.
Yeah, well, you know what, I'm going to take that as a point. We have it, I'm not going to, we're kind of beating this within an inch of its life as it is. Mrs. Singer, I said I'd give you.
I was going to ask if I could actually read the letter that I wrote, since there has been question about the tone of the invitation has been called
Well, we can give them to the press. I mean, they're all long letters.
Mrs. Singer?
Yeah, just a few things. Mr. Chair, yes, the Board of Selectmen has no authority over the planning board, but unless I'm mistaken, and I asked for a correction, but I believe it's accurate that we do actually have authority over the EDC. Also, like Ms. Walker, I had no idea about what had happened, any arguments or disagreements during that process until I read it in the paper. My whole reason for this was non-political, and as I mentioned, and I won't beat that dead horse, just information sharing. I will point out that assumptions were made based upon some of the comments I read, and we know how dangerous assumptions can be. And I hate to see our highly paid professional department heads making assumptions. My last comment is that this has already been asked to be put on a future agenda as an item. I don't see us accomplishing anything tonight by going back and forth and arguing over this. So my feelings are, at this point, we're just stop discussion until we get to
I
the
just have one point of clarification.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you. In the letter that was originally sent out, Joe, you said Ted's Package Store wasn't mentioned, but it was, in fact.
Was it?
To the initial invitation, I'm looking at it. And you also said that, and I assume you meant the planning board, we have to stop them from, and I'm quoting here, muddling around and doing nothing.
I did not address the planning board in that. I said that the town in general has done nothing to address the concerns of economic development.
So the EDC is muddling
No,
around
I'm talking
and,
about the town in general. No one has really championed this kind of thing to really make sure, to fix our perception, to fix what people see that Charlton is bad for business.
So-
That's what I was getting at. So there was
so-
a lack of, some champion to really make that discussion happen.
but the muddling around and doing nothing wasn't meant for anybody in
It
particular.
was not at all.
Okay, and the final thing I wanted to say is, Rick, you said I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. So why are we calling a roundtable, inviting the people that do have the answers, so that we can hear what their answers are? Assuming, that makes no sense to me. If you don't have the answers, why
I
are
don't have
we?
the answers, I have the questions.
Well, I'm sure they'll be glad to answer your questions.
And this was an opportunity for them to do that, and they've declined.
Okay, it was an invitation, as you said.
It was an
They
invitation.
declined the invitation. Everybody's mad because and outraged and disappointed and dismayed because they didn't answer the invitation.
They
Mr.
did,
Chair?
Mr. Chair.
I'm not angry that
I-
they declined. I'm simply angry at the way things
Wait,
have
okay,
progressed.
I'm gonna call an end to the discussion on this now. We've covered all the points, we've all made our feelings on it very well felt. And we are gonna move on.
And the roundtable will happen?
The roundtable is scheduled to happen, yes, ma'am. Ms. Sprague?
Good evening, long evening. Carol Sprague Cloutier from 80 Osgood Road in Charlton. I had a couple things to say. I was sitting back there, getting frustrated listening to everything, and I know it's a very tenuous and frustrating discussion. I talk to a lot of people in town. You see me out there all the time. And I really commend you for bringing this issue up. I think it's enlightening and encouraging to finally hear somebody bring to the forefront that there's lack of communication between the Board of Selectmen and the boards, and there's so much fragmentation in this town. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of things aren't getting accomplished. I know a lot of people and I've heard a lot of things about businesses that have wanted to come to this town, that have found it very difficult to negotiate, to be able to put their businesses where they want to put them, or they have difficulty with one board or another, whether it's the Board of Health or the Planning Board, or, I don't know. It's very discouraging, and I've been here for a long time, and I see that all the time. So thank you for bringing that up. There's a good reason why I think the Planning Board and the EDC probably declined to be part of the roundtable, and because for the most part they're ineffective and they're not doing their jobs properly, and I know that and I hear that, and I think that needs to be addressed. I don't know how it's going to get addressed. I don't know if it's an elected thing or some people are elected, but I think some people are hired too. So maybe that's something that needs to be addressed when employment evaluations are done. You know, how effective are they being in this town? How much growth are we getting? And why aren't we getting growth if we're not getting growth? Why aren't those things being looked at? And with all due respect, if you have a member that's a relative on one of those boards, I think you should excuse yourself from the conversation because it's very, you know, it can be very emotional. You don't want to see anybody, you want to defend the person on your board, and I understand that. You want to defend your family member. There's plenty of times I sit back here and hear people talk about my family member who's a town employee, and I can't say anything, or I don't want to say anything. So I understand that, but that was the only other thing I wanted to say. But the other thing was, is it a public roundtable? Can other people go to this? And just, again, I want to commend you. I know it's been a long night, but it's nice to see these issues finally coming out. And I hope more people in town talk about their feelings about this, because I know there's a lot of people that are very disheartened with the way things are going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bragg. The one
Thank you.
One question that you did ask is, it is a publicly posted meeting. That being said, I'm confident that I can speak for Chairman Morrow as well as myself in saying that the meeting is not going to turn into a personal attack on anyone or any board. It's there, the purpose of it is to exchange ideas.
And I think that's a wonderful idea. So maybe you might want to have some rules to the meeting and put those out prior to the meeting being, you know, conducted. You know, these are the rules we're going to go by, and if somebody gets out of line with the rules, you're out of the meeting.
I think that's a pretty safe bet that will happen.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer.
I just want to thank Ms. Sprague. I think it took a lot of courage to sit at that table and say what you said. I've been a selectman for a while, moderator for a while. I've been involved in the town for a long time, and I can't begin to tell you how many people I hear from with issues, either regarding town hall, one of our schools, and they're terrified. They won't speak up because they are afraid. They're afraid there will be repercussions on themselves, a family member, a child. So it takes a lot, I think, to sit there and do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think there's a lot of people that want to volunteer for boards or that want to go for public positions, a lot of smart people, a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge about the town. And one of the reasons why they don't do it is because they feel that they're going to be ineffective, they're not going to be listened to, and there's such a lack of cooperation, and you know, you want to get things accomplished, but they see it time and again. I've been here for 20 years, and I'm hearing the same discussions I heard 20 years ago. I mean, there has been some change and some good change, but it's very frustrating when people are trying to move forward with businesses and things in town, and they come, and it's almost like there's a personal offense if someone makes a complaint. And I heard it tonight here with the Housing Authority. I mean, this was a despicable exchange as far as I'm concerned. It was personal, it was emotional, and the person who's in charge of the Housing Authority, this isn't a personal thing. The health and well-being and the safety of the people that live in those buildings should always come before anything else.
Not to be disrespectful, but if they're not here, I don't think we can.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that as a citizen sitting here and listening to that, you know, it was not a very nice thing to hear.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up, we're going to move along. Next up, we have old business where we have no items under new business. Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer. All yours.
I was just going to say, I can't tell you a thing about fire negotiations. You're welcome. But we'll hopefully be talking soon.
Fire negotiations?
Fire union negotiations.
Oh, okay, all right.
They're ongoing.
You will be talking to them in executive session.
Yeah.
Right, I can't.
It's pending. It's imminent. Anyone else have any committee? Ms. Walker, you want to talk about MMA?
Yes, and I just wanted to, highway negotiations are coming up, but that hasn't happened. I think it's next week. Supposed to have our first meeting. The Worcester County Selectmen's Association, which Joe has been gracious enough to come to, is moving on, and we had a great meeting here in Charlton in January. And the MMA meeting is an annual meeting for the Mass Municipal Association. Joe was there. And it was a whole two-day affair with quite a few people. It was attended by about 1,100 officials from all over the state, more officials than ever have come before. Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, opened it by assuring the crowd that the House will do better than the governor's recommendations for the budget this year, which are very meager and not too supportive of local aid. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey also came, and they spoke, as well as the new mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh. The opening speaker was John Meacham, who recently published a biography of Thomas Jefferson. He spoke about the three qualities of good politicians, which was kind of fun to hear. First, they must be believable and likable. Second, they must love their job. And third, they must have a story or a narrative of why they were in the office. And he spent about an hour fleshing out those 3 points. It was excellent. There was a lot of wonderful workshops. One of them that I attended was a workshop on state and local budget and economic outlook. And after 10 minutes of it, the governor walked in. So everything stopped, and he thanks us all for being there, and then asked us to support his reforms for OPEB, other post-employment retirement benefits. And this is a big kerfuffle with the MMA, who is in support of the cities and towns, feel that the OPEB budget that the governor is proposing is going to be very detrimental to the cities and towns. It's a tremendous amount of money that's it's projected to go ahead. Right now, if you work 20 hours a week for over 10 years, you're entitled to this health insurance for life. And currently, it's over $30 billion. Health insurance costs have exceeded 19%. The resolution that the MMA is putting forth calls for an increase of a minimum age by 5 years, so in other words, retirement at 55 instead of 50, and increase the number of years of employment from 10 to 15 or 20 before you're entitled to get that. So that will help the cities and towns. Let's see, I went to a WEMO lunch, which is Women Elected Municipal Officials, and listened to a wonderful speaker who talked about why women are not more involved in politics. And basically, the average woman needs to be asked to run for office 7 times. Is the average man? Once. So I'm not sure where they got those figures, but you don't see too many women in politics, so there's something to it. We had the Massachusetts Selectmen's Association meeting Saturday morning. There was a lot of talk by Michael Wildmere about new job growth in the state, but the consensus was that the growth in the state will be very slow. Few overrides pass, local receipts are slow, and state aid only increases slightly. They also told us that the new Selectmen's Handbook is going to be coming out soon. It's a wealth of information. The old one's at least 15 years old, I think. Let's see, what else? The closing ceremony was attended by 8 gubernatorial candidates, including 2 women, 2 doctors, 1 independent, and 1 Tea Party sort of person. Well, he said he was a Tea Party person.
So they got there 7 times being asked.
Right. They were all asked the same 3 questions about Chapter 90. Remember, the governor only gave us $200,000 instead of $300 last year. Well, the first thing the new governor is going to do, if he's one of the 2 major candidates, is give us back that money. The second thing they were all asked was, should local aid be tied to revenue? One of the things that was agreed to when the lottery funds came in was that the cities and towns would get all those lottery funds. Well, we're not getting them. They're not giving them to us, and the lottery funds have increased substantially, particularly this past year, and those funds should be coming out to the cities and towns. And the third issue was the one I've discussed previously, the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits reforms that the MMA is encouraging. The last thing I wanted to mention was the 6th grade essay contest. Now, there's 2,500 entries to the sixth grade essay contest, and there's entries from 79 cities and towns. And the question is, if I were elected leader of my community, I would make a difference by, and it has to be under 300 words. Christopher Sullivan got third place in Charlton. He's a Charlton Middle School, I think he's fifth grade, I'm not sure. Charlton Middle School student, and I've got the whole essay here. But one of the things that they said at the award ceremony to the major winner was that the other second and third place winners would be presented their trophies at the town hall. So I would hope that it would be nice if we could have Christopher come to a selectmen's meeting, read his essay, because it's all about what selectmen should do, and it's kind of fun. And congratulate him if we could put that on an agenda.
Absolutely.
If you want to do that, so,
Ms. Craver's already making notes.
great, great, and it's,
Could you email me the information, please?
yeah, it's Christopher Sullivan from the Charlton Middle School. I think he's fifth grade, that's all I have. I don't know if it's Mike Sullivan's son, I don't know. But it is Mike's son? Oh, okay, all right, he's a sharp kid. Okay, great.
Thank you,
And
Ms.
that's
Walker.
fifth grade too? Is that fifth? Oh, sixth grade, okay, sixth grade, right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Zafirovich?
Just to go along with Ms. Walker said about the MMA event, I thought it was a really good event. You know, had a lot of great meetings, met a lot of great people, and one thing that really struck me was a workshop on citizen-centric reporting, and it's a way to really boil down the information, all the information that comes through the town that we want people to get is sometimes really hard to understand. But even for us, it's sometimes a lot hard to really grasp all the information. And they have these experts talk about how they boil the information down to numbers and summaries that the average person can just absorb and understand. You know, and we basically do something like a town report, which is just 4 pages. And I think that's something maybe we should pursue as a committee, as a board, to really work on maybe developing this sort of process. I want to maybe on our next agenda talking about this, about creating some sort of CCR committee, not Clearwater Revival, but a citizen-centric reporting committee of a makeup, 2 selectmen, maybe other members, to really work on this, to really be able to provide the town at least once a year a 4-page document that tells them information that people want to know.
I've been to some very valuable seminars at MMA conferences as well, so we can certainly entertain anything that either of you brought back that could help this board serve the town better.
Great.
Thank you. We have the Board of Selectmen policy review. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. As the board's September 17th meeting, it was discussed to have the Board of Selectmen policies divided by each member of the board for review and have them on each agenda for discussion until completed, with no more than 5 policies per meeting for review. The following are what has been reviewed with recommendations from the person reviewing them. Policy 10, closings, delayed openings of the Town of Charlton Municipal Offices building in the event of snow, disaster, or other circumstances, employee responsibilities and compensation. Mr. Singer has made some recommendations, and if you are agreeable, I'll just stop on each policy.
That's
and
fine.
let you take over.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
Yeah, it was assigned to me, and when I was reading it, only then did I realize one of the things the town does. Generally speaking, throughout the country, there are salaried employees and there are hourly employees. Salary employees get paid their salary whether they work 40 hours, 30 hours, or 80 hours, it doesn't change. And hourly employees get paid for hours worked. Generally, if an hourly employee doesn't work the hours, they don't get paid for the hours. And until I got this policy assigned to me, I didn't realize that in the town of Charlton, when it comes to certain closings, we pay hourly employees even if they don't work the hours. In the private sector, that doesn't happen. In fact, I've never heard of that happening anywhere. Sadly, whether you're in retail or an office, if your office closes because of a storm or snow, you don't work, you don't get paid. It's just sound business practice. So anyway, when I did notice that we were paying hourly employees, even if they're not working, I thought I would throw it out there and say, you know, it's just a common business practice. that to me made sense. Perhaps though with one caveat, and that being that if an hourly employee couldn't work because the town was closed and we don't pay hourly employees when they don't work, that we give them the option of using any PTO time if they have any available, so they can still get paid for those hours.
Thank you.
For your consideration.
Comments from the board?
Can you tell me, this is kind of a long, exactly where the changes were? I don't see them.
It's on the last page, maybe. If you go to Mrs. Singer's.
What- what-
Oh, that's what describes what he wants to change.
Right, I didn't know where in the policy you wanted to change it, what number?
5.1.
5.1, okay, so that's where you're adding the,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
Before we act on this, are there any contractual obligations made to these hourly employees, any legal ramifications, or any other sort of state-level mandate? Is there anything else we should be aware of before we act on this?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
You need to bargain it. You have past practice of closing the town hall, and when you close the town hall, you hold your employees harmless, meaning that you pay them because they're ready and willing to work. Sometimes they've got their coats on when they find out that the town hall is closed. It's no fault of their own that they come. This past boards, and the town has always compensated them. So you would need to bargain in good faith with them over that change, because it is a change in working conditions and compensation.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Zafirovich?
So would that mean with the negotiate with every union and then also as a whole of the town? Even the non-union members?
It would be, the clerical union would be affected because your department heads receive most of them are salaries, so they would receive their money anyway. I think that that's one of the reasons that past boards have been okay with paying people, because your department heads will be paid regardless, and then you have a few clerical that would lose pay. So I think it's been important to the board in many towns to keep them whole and not have them lose pay. Some of the people may not be working 40 hours. They may only be working 35 hours or less than that. And again, it's through no fault of their own. So it would be the clerical union for the most part. Police and fire, highway, you don't generally shut down. So it would be the clerical union.
Sure.
Mr. Singer?
Well, it's no.
One second, Chief.
I was really gonna say that, you know, obviously, while it's no fault of their own, it's no fault of their own for people in the private sector as well. And my only concern when I brought this up was that if people in our community realized that we were paying hourly employees for hours not worked, they might be as shocked to discover that we were paying people for not working as I was. And it's specifically because of through no fault of their own, that I suggested the idea that if they have PTO time, to let them use that so that they don't lose the pay. But that would at least keep us more in line with a common business practice.
And it's a fair question, but as Ms. Craver stated, that's something that when the clerical union contract is up, that's something that could be brought up as a point to be bargained in.
For unions, I'm not sure if we have any hourly employees. who are
I don't
non-union, or
believe
are they
we have
all
any
union?
hourly people that are outside of the unions.
Are they all union, all of them for the town, hourly employees?
We have non-union and union.
So we do have non-union.
Chief, one second, Chief.
I understand the subject matter and what's being debated as far as safety of employees coming in or doing what have you. Respectively, you know, like tomorrow, you know, the town hall's not gonna be open, and whatever decisions are made. My department still runs, my administrative assistant is being required to come to work, but you know, I can't speak for, you know, fire, because the chief's not here, and, you know, and the highway superintendent, whether they have their administrative assistants come in. But I would just say to you that the same safety issues as far as that employee coming to work are being, you know, that person still has to negotiate through the snow to get here and do whatever, and that person is just as valuable an employee. So I just would like some, as you go forward, thinking on whatever comes out of this, So for those other employees, you know, in the other departments that are coming in, the police officers know, you know, that they have to come in. The dispatchers know that they have to come in because we're public safety. I know that the highway department has to come in because they're public safety and they have to plow the road. So we know rain, snow, sleet, you know, whatever, we have to perform. But our respective administrative assistants, the thought should be into that as well.
If I can speak to that.
I want to give Ms. Walker a chance, so she was waiting here, so I'll give her a chance, and then it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You know, the average person who's going to be hurt by this is the administrative assistant. And she or he has a mortgage to pay each month, and they're dependent on so many hours. They're probably living half the time paycheck to paycheck, and or even if they're not, they're dependent on that money. So for us to say, you people who probably are not in a union and don't have a lot of rights are not going to get paid, even though we're not going to let you work, even if they wanted to work, is blatantly unfair and unsupportable, and I wouldn't support it. And if I seem very passionate about this, it's because that's my nature, not because I don't have anybody in this town that's related to me that works for
Just before, I understand, like, when the state shuts down and they say for all non-essential state employees stay home, I believe they all get compensated. You know, when the governor does that, when the mayor of a city does, that they do get compensated, and that's generally like a practice in the public sector, maybe not in the private sector. I understand whatever way this falls. All I'm asking that is that this is parity across, however it comes out, that it is a valid subject, but, you know, for discussion. But the idea is, you know, how that's treated. What I do, I'll just tell you publicly, if you shut down for a day, and my employee comes in and works her requisite time, if there's hours that are needed for, you know, I compensate her, you know, if she needs to leave an hour early, take childcare or something, I make it up to her, because I feel that she's just as valuable as everybody else, and I give her the time accordingly. That's how I work that. So, just
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Craver?
Just in case you're wondering why the chief is citing his administrative assistant as different, she is not in the union. She's a non-union person. Most of our clerical and administrative assistants are in the union. The only two that are not would be in the Board of Selectmen's office, which are non-union because they are confidential. Right now, just so that you understand how we operate when we close, you have a policy from the Board of Selectmen as to how the town hall closes, and we follow that policy. I make sure that I contact all the department heads so that they know that the town hall has closed, but we do not close or decide for any of the other buildings on whether or not their staff will come in or go out. Police, fire, highway, and water sewer all decide on their own whether or not their employee or their clerical employees are essential staff. Essential staff need to come in. The library has taken the position for the most part, if the town hall closes, they close. So I have been clear with them that when I close here, I'm not going to close for the library. I'll let her know, and then she can take care of that, and she generally does on her own website.
Thank you. Quickly, Mr. Singer.
Very quick, just in response to what comment Ms. Walker made, and the board may not want to do anything with this, that's fine, but the private citizens of Charlton also have mortgages to pay, and when the mall closes, they don't get paid, which is why I threw in as a protection for a town employee, if that was chosen as an option, to be able to utilize PTO time, so they could still get paid. And one comment related to what the chief said is simply that bad policies exist at all levels of government, not just local government, but right through state and federal. And just because the state also has a lot of bad business practices doesn't mean we have to at the local level.
Thank you.
Just
Ms.
one more
Walker.
addition, thank you.
Quickly, please. I'll give you the
This
same
is
caveat
quick,
as Mr.
and I'm sure Mr. Singer would agree that if we were to do this, that it would also apply to the Board of Selectmen, because we get a stipend of $2,000 a year. Now, if you divide that by 24 meetings, and we were to miss, which we have, we've missed because of snow, 4 or 5 meetings, right? In the last 2 months. Maybe we should be also docked for that.
The biggest, thank you. The biggest component of this is the clerical union, so I don't think anything will happen until, or if it's ever bargained with.
Right, and if the board even wants to take any action on it, and I'll point out, Ms. Walker, that I was the one who said the selectmen should get no pay.
Yeah, but
Mr. Salou.
do you
Mr.
take
Chair,
pay?
at this point, I'm gonna excuse myself from the meeting. I'm on a 39-hour day, and I've got a snowstorm coming in at about 2 o'clock, and I'd like to grab maybe 4 hours of sleep tonight if I could.
Thank you.
Before I fall asleep, right?
We are boring you.
And what I'm
I'm fighting it, I'm going, oh, come on. All right.
What I'm gonna do is take a quick break in the action here, as riveting as it is. And more important than plowing snow, we have a member who has to go to school in the morning. So I'm gonna take a break and let Ms. Sprague do her.
She's not going to school in the
Hold
morning.
on a
There's no
second.
school tomorrow.
I
All
got
right,
an
well, I'm still-
automated phone call.
Were you at school today?
Yeah.
You were, okay.
She can stay
Then I'm
here
done.
all, no, just kidding.
So, it's yours.
As
Our student select person's report, please.
Thank you. As I was just updated, there is no school for all schools in the Dudley
Oh, then
Charter
never mind, we're gonna go
School
back to our
District
agenda.
tomorrow. Bay Path has also been closed according to Channel 5 News. Third quarter progress report grades will be closing February 14th. There will be no school due to winter break, February 17th through the 21st. On the 21st, a cheerleading tournament will be held at Shepherd Hill. February 26th, the Italy, Greece, and Turkey parent trip meeting is in the auditorium at 6:30 p.m. February 28th, third term progress reports are issued. And on March 16th, there is an early release at 11:15 a.m. for parent-teacher conferences 1 to 4 and 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, February 8th, there will be a Shepherd Hill Math AP course Saturday session. May 5th through the 14th, 2014, there will be AP exams being held at Shepherd Hill. You'll need to pay $89 per exam. Registration for these exams is currently open and will conclude on March 28th. Students on free reduced, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. MCAS testing for grade 10 students will be held March 18th through June 3rd.
Do you have any questions for our student select person, Mr. Singer?
You know what, I'd like to point out that she had no problem whatsoever utilizing her iPad to go through her
Does that say more about her or us?
It's hard.
It can be a challenge if you're over, if you're of a certain age, let's leave it at that.
I'm 71, I've been using it since they
One
came out.
thing I apparently have missed, I should have mentioned it during open forum, and I think I've missed old business, but it's school-related, if I can throw one thing out there.
Just about your daughters?
Shepherd Hill, oh no, wait. Shepherd Hill girls track, winter track, for the first time in years, I'd like to offer them congratulations. Finished their regular season perfect, undefeated,
Wow.
and then went on to win the Circle Championship.
Wow, that's
The first time
wonderful.
it's happened
Good
in
for
years.
them.
That's great.
Congratulations to
Yeah.
them. Any other questions for our student select person? Thank you, Ms. Sprague.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience tonight. It's been a long one.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Zafirovich.
Quick point of maybe order question of
Sure.
how we operate. Since we do announcements at the beginning, maybe we should move the student select person's report towards the beginning, just in case we have a long, drawn-out meeting that she could possibly leave if she doesn't want to stick around.
Then, in all honesty, I could have called her earlier. I mean, that's actually the purview of the chair to
So it's
change
his
things
fault.
around a little bit, but, so you can be mad at me. Thank you. All right, let's jump back to our other.
Which means you can go if you want.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea behind that, so I didn't sneak out.
So we're gonna move on to other policies?
We have other policies. So we're gonna go to number 14, which is the correspondence policy. Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The correspondence policy, which has been in effect since July 12th, updated July 12th, 2005, updated 2008. I'd like to update it again. Basically, the first sentence is correspondence received in the Board of Selectmen's office shall be stamped received and a copy put in the Board of Selectmen's correspondence file. And I've added the words, and a copy scanned and emailed to the selectmen. The second paragraph is correspondence will remain in the office for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks' time, it will be filed in the proper drawers located in the Selectman Town Administrator office. And the third paragraph is mail addressed to a specific select person shall be copied directly to that person and filed in her mailbox, his or her mailbox. And I've added the words by email and also filed in his or her mailbox. Those are the changes that I'd like to see put into effect.
Any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Zafirovich?
Ms. Graber, what do you think about this, since you'll be the most affected by this?
We've had this discussion before. I've had concerns and shared my concerns with the board about the added time to actually scan everything. It all comes in different sizes. We'd have to make copies of the mail that comes in. Also, I have concerns that if you add in that everything, all correspondence that comes into the office, does that mean that we're going to be needing to make decisions on what does get to you and doesn't? I have concerns that something will be missed. And frankly, there's also a part of me that says, you come in and sign the warrant. I'd really like to have reasons for you to come in and look at the read folder. This just feels like another reason that, you're out, I'm not gonna say absent, not coming into the office to do some of the selectmen business. But my main concern is, it should be all, if it's going to be, it should be all or nothing, and you would get everything. And I think that it creates a burden on the staff to have to do that.
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I also believe that most of the important correspondence that we get does get forwarded to the selectmen pretty regularly,
That actually is a good point, because I generally, the mail comes in for me. They take a look at it, they open it, it comes to me. I'll assign it somewhere. Most of the time, if it's something that's time sensitive, I will take that and scan it and send it out to you. So now that means that I'm gonna have to make sure that the staff knows that I've already sent it. Or they may be thinking I've sent it, I may be thinking they've sent it. I'm not sure I see the value in scanning all of the correspondence. I know that the board had asked for things that were specifically addressed to the selectmen, or if it was a complaint that was available to be scanned, and I think that Kathleen and David were the two people who had asked for that. I'm not sure if that's continuing. I think that was back in December 2010 that you had talked about doing that. So I'd love to work with the board, but as the language that Mrs. Walker's proposing at this point, I think would cause more problems than, it's not as simple.
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Singer?
The only thing I wanted to say on that was regarding the complaints. I think one of the reasons for that is because they can be time sensitive. And Ms. Walker or myself or Mr. Swinson or anyone may be in 2 days in a row, not be in for 2 days. If we're not in for that 2 days and the complaint came in, we didn't know about the complaint. So that was, I think, the request for any complaints, we were notified immediately so we'd know there was an issue.
And I pretty much do that. And anything that I think that you may end up in the newspaper that you should know about ahead of time, I try to make sure that I scan it and send it to you.
Well, there
Mr.
was a
Chairman?
letter in the paper.
I didn't
There's
know
an
that was
article in the
coming.
paper.
Ms. Walker?
I appreciate Mrs. Craver's concerns. They're actually the same ones that were presented years ago. It's come to my attention, especially being involved in the Worcester County Selectmen's Association, that many other towns get much more information, specifically with regard to the letters, than we get. There's a lot of letters that are in the read folder that we never see unless we do go through the read folder, which takes at least about an hour. And so, I'm sorry, can I just finish?
Sorry, yep, sorry.
Thank you. The concern is that, and the other thing I've discovered is that many offices are not as well-staffed as ours is. So, I think we should be able to find time to do it. I think that I'm just talking about letters, and I think there's a pretty clear difference between advertisements. There's a lot of stuff in that Read folder that are more in the line of advertisements with brochures and stuff like that. And I don't think if you missed sending something to us, I don't think, since we're not getting any of it now, I don't think there'd be any problems by accidentally missing something. I doubt if there'd be more than 5 letters a week that would be sent to us. I want to see those letters. Unless I go in there, sit down for an hour, make a copy of the letter, and bring it home. I have to, it's not on my computer, and it's a lot of extra work for all 5 of us, because all 5 of us have to do it. So, I have more time than most of the other selectmen have, because they're all, have full-time jobs or in school. So, if it's hard for me, I can't imagine that it'd be easy for them. So those are the reasons why I would recommend this change. I will continue to recommend it, but I just feel that in the past, I've missed some correspondence, and then I see it in the Read file when I get to look at it, and it's distressing. Sometimes it's I haven't seen it before, and it's too late to respond. So I just really think we need to be able to get more of this information. And I'm not asking for all of it. I'm asking for probably 5 letters a week at the most.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Singer.
Are we already getting the letters? I mean, like, the letter regard from the family around the fire, I got that letter emailed to me.
Some we do, some we don't. Some we do, some we don't. I would entertain a motion on this if someone chooses to make one.
I just want to be clear. I do hear Mrs. Walker saying she wants certain types of correspondence. That's not what the policy, what you would be voting on. The policy change is correspondence. And
Okay, well, I would be glad to amend the word correspondence to specifically letters.
Addressed to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. Or copy to the Board of Selectmen. The letter might come to you and be CC'd to the Board of Selectmen. I need to see that.
I think this policy just deals with everything that comes into the office. Maybe that's something you would want to add on to it instead of changing that. So maybe say in the policy, any letters directed to the Board of Selectmen be emailed, I guess, if that's.
Well, then what happens, and
Yeah.
I hate to keep
And then
throwing up
what is a
all the
letter?
problems. Another problem is what happens if it has personal information.
What do you mean?
We have data security management. We're very careful about sending out
Well, if it's very
That's all my
personal,
concern.
just put a copy in our box.
That's all
You
I'm
know,
bringing up.
that's
We
all.
have-
Just put it in
if
the box
has their
instead of,
name, address, social security number, or
well, yeah.
other type of things.
If it has personal information, I would just put the copy in the box instead of emailing it to us. But I would, I might let people know that there's that copy there.
So we're gonna look at this then as coming back with new wording for a new section to the policy or something?
I would prefer that if we could, Ms. Walker, if you'd be willing to do that.
Well, I'd ask Mrs. Craver to suggest the wording that would make sense to her, if she would. So that it wouldn't be too much of a, burden on the staff. And make too many complications. I don't wanna.
I would ask that if you two have a discussion about that, we can bring it back for next time.
Okay, that's good with me.
And the other thing I would like to do is ask Mr. Singer's indulgence if we could postpone action on the next 3 until our next meeting. It's getting very late.
Oh, sure. No problem.
Does anyone have any objection to that?
Do you wanna do the one that requires no action?
Let's do the one that requires no action.
Which one is that?
Number 24.
I have changes in that,
So maybe we're gonna skip that one too.
and that'll be a
I'd like to
discussion.
postpone until next week if we could. Mrs.
And
Zafirovich?
Mr. Chair, I was told that Selectmen can only do 1 policy a week. I don't know
If there were
why.
openings to allow for more.
I submitted 3 or 4 as well, and because they all get
You
filled
got
up.
turned down?
I get turned down.
Oh,
Mr.
see, that's
Singer's
not
always been
fair.
a renegade anyway, so.
He thinks just because he's the vice
Yeah,
chair,
well,
he's
we
got
will-
Because
extra
you don't know what
privileges.
tenure on here,
All right.
you get special rights.
Darn it.
So let us move on. We will revisit these next time. It's getting very late. Let us move on to the town administrator's report. If she can find it.
I am determined. Okay, whoops. Although it's taken, no, sir. I'm gonna get good at this. Everbridge. Although it's been taking longer than expected to set up the system, Monday, January 13th, with the assistance of Carl Ekman, Emergency Management Director, we tested the 911 system with just town hall employees. I'm happy to say it was successful. Training is continuing, and we should be ready to use when needed. More tests will be done. We have just put together a press release also, so we'll be getting some information out to the residents. Regarding water, last Monday, I had a very productive meeting, and this would actually be 2 weeks ago because this was written for your last meeting. I had a very productive meeting with the town of Southbridge's new interim town manager, Bob Reed, on the issue of water. Mr. Reed was very positive and willing to work with us. As we are, he is concerned that the water quality will be sustainable with the addition of additional pipes. We agreed it'll be extremely important to have turnover. Charlton must have sufficient users to make the system work. That is our responsibility. The engineers continue to work on design and water turnover requirements. Licenses review, I met with staff to review the board's licenses and which licenses need adjustments in their requirements. We will be using your model for review. Each week, we will review 5 licenses to see changes needed to be recommended to the board. The staff includes the fire chief, police chief, building commissioner, our administrative assistant who handles licensing, and a representative from the Board of Health has been invited. Pension, I attended the annual Worcester Retirement Board meeting. As you know, they manage Charlton's pension fund. The fund is increasing assessments on average of 7%. In FY14, Charlton's assessment was $704,243, and it's going up in FY15 to $742,358, which is an increase of $38,000. The retirement board voted to stretch out the unfunded liability to 2040. As you know, the board is also migrating from assessments based on how many employees a unit has and is now basing the assessment on a unit's use. FY15 is the last year of the shift, so we are now funding our retirees. Mr. Blanchett, the director, has offered to come and speak with you if you have questions or would like to hear more about our retirement system. 2014 scholarship question. It's that time again when we need to provide a question on the scholarships and one for cooking scholarship. Does the board have any suggestions? And we will put this on your next agenda to finalize, so you could be thinking about it now. I also have a couple of other things. If I can just do that now instead of waiting
Yes.
for under old business. You have a great staff. I just want to start out and say we have one of the, I think, top-notch department heads and staff in the state. And I want to tell you that we have, our financial team is shining. We have been upgraded by Standard & Poor from a AA to a AA+.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
So,
All right.
kudos to our town
Excellent,
treasurer, town
excellent.
accountant,
All the more reason to borrow money, right?
assessor. And I have those.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Buy more fields.
And I actually have the rating for you, a copy of the rating. There you go. So, we're pleased. You are being Charlton is being recognized for its financial stability, its hard work and policies. So, I thought you would
Very good,
like to
very
know
good
that.
news, thank you.
And lastly, I just want to let you, lastly, but there was, our conservation agent did a fishing tournament down at Buffinville this weekend. They had over 100 people.
Wow.
One of the things that Todd had told me was one of the largest populations were women with daughters and children, which
Wow.
he finds very exciting. I find exciting that there are woodswomen out there that are learning to fish. So it was very successful, and hopefully we'll be doing it again down at the Buffinville Dam. Under other business, I also have something.
Why don't you keep going then?
Okay. I have had a meeting with Gerard, our conservation agent, and Todd Burlingame, our tree warden. We discussed,
Phones?
what?
Sorry, I'm getting silly. Telephones.
We discuss, as you know, we have the tree grant, and I've been trying to work with them to come up with a plan to spend the grant money. We went over trees. They're making a list of priority damaged trees that need to be taken down. We're also taking a look at replacing some trees. To that end, the conversation around the town common came back up again, and I know it's been like 7 years we've been talking about, we did some trimming out there. We had an arborist come, and it was recommended to take down at least one of the big
Pine trees?
hemlocks. Yeah. And we haven't done that, and we've procrastinated, and we love those trees. It's getting time that one of them is dangerous, and we would like to look at removing it. It's also been determined that because we're a balanced type of community, to see one tree gone and the other one still there
So lonely without.
would probably turn
Yeah.
the common upside down in a non-feng shui way. So, I'm gonna ask the board to consider approving that we remove the 2 larger trees and then get 2 new Christmas trees. Well, I say Christmas trees. I only use that as a metaphor to tell you what type of tree we'll be looking for.
Green and triangular, conical shape.
A nice spruce or something, and our conservation agent is doing some looking at that. Like to purchase 2 about 20 feet tall. I see it as an investment in our future generations to come.
What would this do to the Christmas lights?
Lower them a little bit.
Save them a lot of time putting them up.
Save money
Especially if
on
you're not gonna
electricity.
replace the ladder truck.
Right,
Probably
right.
a good idea.
One strand apiece, small trees.
So, we have the funding to remove the trees, to stump them, and to put new trees in, and I'd like permission to do that.
What would you do with the wood?
Hopefully, if there's anything of value, that would offset our costs, so they would remove it.
We have to get them checked first before we cut anything down?
They've been checked.
They have been
They've been
checked.
checked for
7 years ago,
parasites and whatever.
they were suggested.
Does it have to be more recently, 7 years?
Through the chair, if you do replace the trees, make sure there's a maintenance program so that they don't become unshapely and just putting them in there and just hoping that they do well. But I mean, there has to be a plan going forward to maintain them, so.
Mr. Chair, it was 7 years ago. Is there any need to check more recently, or 7 years ago was fine?
I don't know the answer to that. My hunch
should
would
just
be
check
that
and
if
make sure.
it was bad 7 years ago, it probably hasn't gotten better.
One of them had a severe lightning strike.
No, that's not what I was referring to.
Oh, I understand what you're
It
saying.
wasn't sick and
I
got
don't.
better.
No, there are some
What am I
times they
missing?
tell you you can't just take a tree down because it may have a certain bug or insect in it.
Yeah,
So you have to
we'll-
contact someone else
God
before you can take
forbid.
a tree down.
We will make sure that all of that is carried out of what
Mrs. Zefirovich?
required.
I also think, because it's really, since I was around, those 2 trees are like, a landmark of Charlton, and maybe we can look into maybe someone in the Fortress Hill Road or some sort of logger to make some sort of art piece out of it, or something so we can remember it.
That's a very good point, and one of the things that did come up in our discussion was that if there's any trees, as we're going through with any of the grant, that is good stock, that we would like to keep it and have it milled and perhaps donate it to PayPal. So with these trees, if there's anything still available, we can check.
New canes that are presented to the,
There you go. So I would ask if the board wants to make a motion relative to the trees?
I would make it, but I probably wouldn't get reelected.
Yeah.
the funds are there, it won't cost the taxpayer.
Won't
anything.
cost the taxpayer.
How much will the new 20-foot trees cost then?
We're working on that, but it will be covered by the grant.
Mr. Wilmot?
It costs the
Ron
taxpayer
Wilmot,
nothing.
Colburn Road in Charlton. Just want to remind you that there is a documentation of the trees on the common. It's on the website. It's a photograph of each tree and a description of the trees. And if you go to the library's website, you can find it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good information.
We also, and I believe that the board is aware,
The
we're
library
also looking
website.
at the tree. We have a in-memory tree that the family has already agreed that we can move over the it's too close to the building, then we will take that down and replace it on the common, as a substitute tree. So we're looking at a nice tree for that family.
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I'm just getting ideas now. If we were to cut a cross-section of the tree, you know, we'd have all the rings, we can actually have like a history of Charlton, we can point at the different rings, so when certain things happen, just throwing out ideas.
Keep you the outer ring.
The
You know,
bark.
You opened the door to the whole, as long as you've been around ACE now. I wasn't gonna step through it, but, okay, I'll do it.
It's not getting earlier. I would ask if someone would make a
Mr.
motion.
Chair, this is no cost to the taxpayers. I'll make the motion. So moved.
Heartless, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Ms. Craver?
Oh, trees on the corner, I found it.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? Okay, none appearing. We are going to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich.
I move that we enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, for reason number 1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline or dismissal or complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. And reason number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on a negotiation position of the public body, and to exit executive session for the purpose of adjourning.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go by roll call vote. Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Zafirovich?
Aye.
Mr. Singer?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the chair does declare that a public meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. And we will exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. And just a couple of quick announcements. The Dudley Charlton Regional School District Budget kickoff meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow, February 11th, has been postponed. Our roundtable discussion on Charlton's growth meeting is on February 11th, 2014, 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. The next regular selectmen's meeting is Tuesday, February 18th, 2014. We do have a lot of snow coming, so please exercise caution, be safe, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you.